We have a quorum. Georgia, can we start the recording, please?
I would be honored.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh.
Three counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
Hello, I'm Rory. You may have seen me at my desk as you came into the Metro Regional Center. Welcome. The Council Chambers is located on the 3rd floor of this building. In the event of a fire or a fire alarm, please exit through the northeast corner of the room. Go down the steps to the 2nd floor, then continue straight ahead past my desk and exit through the main entrance to the plaza outside. The nearest defibrillator is located right outside of the front desk at the top of the steps to Grand Avenue. Thanks for joining us at the Metro Regional Center. We hope you have a safe day.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to declare a quorum and call the Metro Council work session to order. Georgia, if we can please call attendance.
Absolutely. Councilor Rosenthal?
Present.
Councilor Wong?
Present.
Councilor Lewis?
Present.
Councilor Simpson?
Present.
Councilor Nolan?
Present.
Council President Gonzalez?
Present. Thank you. Everyone's here. Thank you. Council, our first presentation today is a presentation on economic development. It is part of our ongoing series on defining prosperity and opportunity for our region. Today we have guests joining us from Business Oregon, Greater Portland Inc., to talk about how our regional businesses recruit employers, recruit employees, and how we can work with them to support policies that help retain what makes this a great place. I'm going to turn it over to Annalisa Kohler, our Legislative Affairs Manager, to introduce the presentation and our guests. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning, councilors. My name is Annalisa Curler. I am Metro's Legislative Affairs Manager. As Council President mentioned, I'm here today with some guests from Business Oregon and Greater Portland Inc. I'm going to introduce them in a second, but first want to do some table setting for you just to introduce the presentation and set up the conversation we're having today. Next slide, please. So as you'll recall, this is a part of the 2026 Economic Development Roadmap. There are 3 streams of work that are a part of that. One is the Legislative Solutions Development, the second is the SEDS update, and third is the Job Ready Lands. This presentation before you today is part of the Legislative Solutions Development. And we really built this work in anticipation of the conversations and discussions that we think will be happening in the 2027 legislative session in relation to land use and economic development. And we have proposed a series of work sessions over the summer and through the fall to help set up those conversations for you all. And really the intention of these work sessions is twofold. One, to help council develop a shared analysis of economic development and land use issues facing our region and our state. And second, for council to share perspectives and priorities to guide legislative solutions. Next slide. So today is the second of those work sessions. And as you see, we've invited partners from Business Oregon and Greater Portland, Inc. to be here with you today. And they are really going to explore how business attraction and development works in Oregon and here in the Portland metro region, and the roles that are played by different partners in attracting targeted industries businesses. You'll see on the slide above, so this is the series of presentations we have planned for you. We started off those presentations with one from Eco Northwest, and they came to talk about the inequities in Oregon's economy. Today is obviously Oregon and the region's business recruitment and retention strategies. Later on in July, we will be having a panel talking about traded sector industrial land supply. And then in the early to mid fall, we're having some specific industries come in and talk about. So this is agriculture industry and data centers, and then concluding with a panel of Metro staff to do a historical look back and looking really at how has industrial land been utilized inside our urban growth boundaries. Next slide. So in order, this series of panels is happening over a couple of months, and I want to make sure we're kind of carrying the thread through all of them. So we'll be having slides to kind of recap prior presentations for all of these. So just a reminder from some of the key takeaways from the disparity by numbers, understanding inequities in Oregon's economy. So as I think you all know, labor force participation, unemployment vary by race, ethnicity, and gender. We see representation of workers of color in tri-county industries ranges from 24 to 45%. So it's a lot of talent that we're seeing sitting on the sidelines. Median wages for workers of color are lower overall, but they are also growing faster. Workers of color are concentrated in low-wage industries and occupations, and women's wages are lower than men's across both racial and ethnic groups. The council discussion that followed did focus on a couple of different points that I wanted to highlight here today. One, there was discussion about how intervention is really critical. So these disparities will not change without active interventions. And then two, a desire to look beyond just jobs. So making sure we're looking at solutions that talk about education, workforce development, and childcare services, that these are all critical to reducing those disparities. Next slide. Or maybe not, next slide. It got cut off. Okay, so the final slide was just bringing forward the main question that we're going to be asking you through all of these presentations, which is this discussion question, which is what are the key takeaways that council wants to see reflected in policy and funding solutions? So with that table setting introduction, I'm going to turn it over to our guest today from Business Oregon and Greater Portland, Inc. I'm really pleased to have with us here today Jeff Hampton and Garrett Pryor from Business Oregon and Nick Triska with Greater Portland, Inc. Jeff and Garrett are both the regional development officers for the Tri-County region. Jeff focuses on Clackamas and Washington counties. Garrett focuses on Multnomah County. And then Nick Triska is the head of business development for GPI. With that, I will turn it over to my partners.
Excellent. Council President, councilors, Metro staff, good to be here this morning. Garrett Pryor, he, him pronouns. As Annalise said, Regional Development Officer with Business Oregon, focusing specifically on Multnomah County and City of Portland.
Morning, Council President and councilors, Metro staff, Jeff Hampton, Regional Development Officer. I'm our lead for Clackamas and Washington counties, and thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Nick Triska, Head of Business Development at Greater Portland, Inc., the bi-state regional economic development organization doing business attraction work.
Excellent. Well, we've been following along on your series of work sessions, making sure your YouTube views get up a few hits there.
Thank you.
And not only this, but also heading back to the work with the Westside Economic Alliance and Jamie Stasny, Clackamas County, and the work there. It's week 7 for me at Business Oregon. So my role here today is to do some table setting for chefs Jeff and Nick, who are going to deliver you a deeper dive into the jobs piece, business retention and recruitment. But like you saw in some of your last key takeaways, it's not just about jobs. There's a whole ecosystem, a puzzle to put together. So if you want to go to the next slide. One of the things, because the job before this, what I was doing was with Multnomah County, Jessica Peterson's office, and we were on a similar journey at the county. And when we talk about economic development or growth, People can interpret that all different types of ways. So what you see here on these next few slides, we're borrowing from our friends at the Port of Portland, who I thought did just an excellent job of giving us, whether we can agree or disagree with these terms, but at least terms to set the context for this conversation. So when we're talking about economic development today, we're talking about those intentional actions to create a strong, inclusive economy, focus on economic growth, job creation, household income, access to opportunity, multi-generational wealth, regional competitiveness, economic resilience. So that's that broader set of economic development. And really the business retention and recruitment gets down to that smallest circle, business development. So what are those strategic processes of growing lines of businesses, customer base, and revenue with that business focus? So that's the piece of the puzzle we're taking a deep dive on today. Next slide. We know this is not just a government and business solution, that it takes a whole ecosystem of partners. So this isn't an exhaustive, but more of an illustrative list of the different players that have, and basically they're kind of individual swim lanes or concentrations. In your meeting packet is a document that we'll talk about a little bit later, but it goes into a deep dive of specifically showing what roles within the state and GPI and a local economic development player, how we all kind of hand off and tag each other in at different parts of this. And so we know that as a part of this ecosystem, workforce and higher education, business organizations, technical assistance, and public-private partnerships are all key players in that work. Next slide. At Business Oregon, we are state kind of authorized and directed, but as you see here on the screen, we also play in a lot of different pots and issues and fields. So we have funding for research and development, small business help, infrastructure, water and sewer in a lot of our smaller rural areas. Workforce diversity, arts and culture funding comes through Business Oregon, broadband, accessibility and growth, brownfield development, money for seismic retrofitting, money directly for childcare infrastructure. We're a part of Governor's Regional Solutions team, so we talk about amongst our other state agencies how we triage and work together to help people navigate kind of the acronym of state government departments for individuals and businesses. And then finally, we try to really, even at the state level, and I used to work for Virginia Economic Development Partnership and saw the different layers there. Here at Oregon, we take a very relational approach, state, region, local, and working together to just help people navigate those systems. Because a lot of times from the outside looking in, people don't know the different layers, and we don't think that onus should be on them. Next slide. We do have our approach to equity and addressing those disparities. So a lot of the organizations you see here on the screen are ones that you all probably know well through your investments in housing and homeless services and workforce development. So our lens and how we work with a lot of these organizations is the businesses that they're directly working with. We contract in to help grow, retain, and expand businesses here in Oregon. And just one of my 2 cents I've seen, again, working from Virginia and now in Oregon, is that we have some of the healthier community development corporation atmospheres. I think that's a competitive advantage for us. And that is really a way that you take a nonprofit from just being a service provider to a landowner, and you start to create that wealth in community. Next slide. So with that, well, we have one more here. Before I hand it over to Jeff and Nick, again, Port of Portland, I think, did a great job here of laying out how do we create this healthy region? What are those different components of it between community development, safety and infrastructure, human services and education? These are all important and key legs of it. And then today we're going to talk kind of a deeper dive into that economic development lane specifically. So with that, to go into that deeper dive on that puzzle piece, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jeff Hampton.
Great. Thank you so much, Garrett. And again, councilors, thanks so much for the opportunity to come and talk about economic development a little bit. It is a topic of discussion among a lot of circles in the state, as it ought to be, and we're thrilled with that. One of the things I'll say is that, as Nick mentioned, all sort of focus in a bit more on the agency's business retention, expansion, recruitment efforts. A little bit more about the agency itself and the way we approach business retention and expansion. We do focus primarily on, as you'll see in the slide that's still there, you can advance the slide, please, traded sector and small business development. And much of our work, many of our programs are focused on traded sector business investment specifically, not exclusively, but many of them are focused that way. And next slide, if you would. Nick mentioned the ecosystem, and I think this is the document that you were referencing.
Yep.
Would be in the councilor's packets. This is really illustrative of the approach we take here in Oregon. It's the way we like to do the work. As a state, I'd say it reflects our values of collaboration, communication. It's one that recognizes there are different roles for different entities within the broader ecosystem. This is a document that we worked on together with Prosper Portland, the City of Portland's Economic Development Agency, and Greater Portland Inc., GPI. And it really illustrates the various roles we play. There's some overlap, there's some complementary, and I'll say additive aspects to the work. One of the things we try very hard to do is make sure that we're not being duplicative, that we're not creating an environment where you've got a choice between one or the other. To the extent we're able, we like to be able to stack what the state can bring to the table with what a regional entity can bring to help support business development, community development, and then of course the local piece of it. And I'll tell you my own perspective. I suspect it's probably true in Virginia as well and other states. You almost can't overstate the importance of the local economic development piece of this. The businesses live within, we'll use Portland as the example since that's what we have on the slide. Businesses located in Portland will interact with Prosper Portland and the City of Portland much more than they will the state of Oregon. And I think that's how it ought to be. These are businesses dependent on city and regional services in that way, and state services as well. But it's really an important aspect of this. And I wanted to flag that in part because we threw Prosper Portland's name up on the screen and they're not here, but I want to just mention how important a partner they are. I rarely meet with a business where the first or second question I'll ask is, have you connected with Prosper Portland? Have you met with the city of Beaverton if you're in Beaverton? Are you working with Clackamas County or the city of Milwaukee? I want to make sure that businesses have that local connection as well, and that's really critical to our success. This model, as I mentioned, is replicated across the state, and our approach is one that I think it's probably emblematic of what we do in Oregon, working collaboratively that way. If you'd advance the slide, please. Thank you. I mentioned the traded sector, and it appeared on the other slide as well. I want to make sure we level set on what we mean by that. And this is our pulled from Oregon Administrative Rule, but traded sector industry, again, a primary focus of our direct business investment work, is aimed at those businesses that sell their products, their goods and services outside the region. They're reaching into other markets where there's competition, either nationally or internationally. Sometimes folks will refer to this as tradable sector as opposed to traded, in that a business may produce a good or service. They may be in manufacturing of a good that, while they may not be selling it outside the state or internationally, the work that they're doing could be sold. And as they scale and grow and expand, they'll have opportunity to do so. And so traded sector, tradable sector, sometimes used that way. The other thing that I mentioned, I said this is a primary focus of our direct business development work. We do as an agency work in both business and community development. And while we'll focus, Nick and I, primarily on the business development side of it, I do want to say it really is inseparable from the important community development work that also goes hand in hand with it. If you'll advance the slide, please. And one more, I think that one's pretty digestible. I wanted to include this. I appreciated that you're looking at potential legislative concepts or considering what might be some legislative action relative to, sorry, I jumped ahead one slide, my apologies. This slide is a peek at our agency's vision, mission, and budget. And the piece that I wanted to share here is that Business Oregon really functions to provide support in three primary ways as it relates to business development. And that is access to technical assistance or expertise. That's some of the technical assistance provider support that was included on an earlier slide. Access to markets. That is, we've got a global trade team and we help support companies that may want to participate in a trade show, for example, or find ways to get their product, their goods in front of other potential customers. So we have a global trade and an access to market approach to our work to help support businesses with entering into new markets. And then the third sort of larger bucket in business development, access to technical assistance, access to markets. The third is access to capital. And that is really reflected in some direct and indirect loan programs that we administer. We also have grant programs. If you think about potential access to federal technology or innovation research grants at the federal level, our agency has some funding to help support companies that are pursuing those federal dollars as well. And so within our innovation entrepreneurship team or our global trade team, our agency works to help support businesses primarily in those three ways: access to technical assistance, markets, and capital. And the lower part of this, I wanted to include a little bit about our agency budget to give you a sense. I mentioned community development and business development as sort of being the two prongs as I'd captured here. You'll see our infrastructure finance is over 3/4 of our agency budget. And part of that is a function of the fact that infrastructure investments are oftentimes massive investments that communities struggle to be able to finance themselves. It's less so, candidly, here in the metro region, certainly in the larger, more populated areas of the metro region. But we have an infrastructure finance authority that helps support infrastructure, and that could be water, sewer, road infrastructure, communications, et cetera. But that's the lion's share of our agency budget goes to that sort of groundwork that provides the sort of infrastructure businesses and communities need to thrive. Next slide, please. All right, now I'll mention the legislative piece of it. I wanted to make sure you had reference to the statutes that guide and direct our work. As you know, we're an executive branch agency. Business Oregon is not a regulatory agency, but we are an executive branch agency, and so our authorities are derived through state law, through statute, and legislatively directed that way. And I want to make sure that you had, Garrett had mentioned several of the programs and means of support that our agency provides. I wanted to make sure that you had access to where those chapters are found in state law that provide that. Those laws really define our programmatic parameters. The guidelines are built based on that, of course. Next slide, please. So quite a bit here, a little busy, I suppose, this one, but I wanted to share some additional context in our specific business development related programs. And I would capture these really in sort of three buckets as well. You have business incentives, the Strategic Reserve Fund, Business Expansion Program, the Small Business Sustainability Fund. Those are really direct to business forgivable loans or grant programs that the agency administers. We have some employment and industrial lands readiness and site readiness funding available. So you can see those two bullet points in the left-hand column. And then the others are really tax related, where our agency, again, we're not a regulatory body, we're not the taxing authority, but we do play a role in helping to both verify and affirm that businesses that are applying for tax relief or tax treatment through one of these programs, that they appear to have followed the state law as it relates to process, that they're eligible, and ultimately the taxing happens at the local and the state level in that way. But we do administer several tax programs and help support Department of Revenue and county taxation as well. Next slide. A little bit here on some of those business direct investments and infrastructure investments. Wanted to provide this just so that you had a glimpse into the time frame list you'll see indicated is over the course of a couple of years. But it gives you a sense of the scale and some of the investment that we're looking at here. This would be inclusive of all of the programs that we administer where they're captured within either community infrastructure investment or business investment. And I do want to say on our agency website, we have a transparency page that includes reporting on, you can dig into all of these numbers by investment type. You can look at investments that went through the arts and culture side of things or specific infrastructure programs, whether it's our Special Public Works Fund or others, as well as the Strategic Reserve Fund and the Small Business Sustainability Fund. So our investment and transparency page on our website will allow you to dig deeper into each of these. And of course, we wanted to include a peek at some of the jobs that we help to support. And I want to be mindful here that Business Oregon doesn't create jobs. I shudder a little bit when I see jobs created. These are jobs created by private business. These investments are made by, and the risk is taken on largely by private businesses that put oftentimes their blood, sweat, tears, homes, and friends and family capital that they've put together at risk. And so we help support the job creation. We help support the retention of jobs. And these numbers reflect over 2024 and 2025, the jobs that we're able to reflect based on the investments we made. Certainly not due to solely responsible for that was within Business Oregon, but we do play a role. And it's one that we're proud to play. And ultimately for economic development, for the kind of inclusive economic prosperity that we really want to see, it is about jobs creation. And so that is a metric that we track and that we measure. Not always the best metric, I'll admit, especially as industries advance, as the tools and the technology advances. Sometimes a company may need a new piece of equipment that their current operator will be able to continue to operate. It doesn't mean that they necessarily add a job when they add a piece of equipment that's more efficient and more productive, but it does mean that their output could increase. And so there are lots of times that a job creation element may not directly result immediately from these investments. But as businesses have the opportunity to scale and grow, ultimately, we want to see jobs. We want to see communities and people working and thriving here in Oregon. And I also want to flag, this is within the metro region. That investment and transparency page that I mentioned on our website, you'll be able to take a look at those investments statewide. But we define the metro region as the Tri-County region here, Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties. And so we wanted to provide this just as a bit of a snapshot into how we measure and some of the work that we've helped to support.
I just wanted to put 2 cents on this slide. I think this is something we created specifically for this presentation. It's kind of a work in progress, but as you can try to see, we're trying to state level data and really hone it into Metro. So if you want deeper dives on this or how those projects stack up or what those projects are, please reach out. And that's something we can sort of iterate with and get you more information on.
I'd love to see just
A little deeper dive into it.
yeah, just
Okay.
what kind of things are being funded.
Yep.
Sure, thank you.
Next slide, please. And I wanted to provide an example here as well. I mentioned traded and tradable and, sort of export-oriented business. There's a small company in the Central East Side, Ground Up PDX. They make local small batch nut butters. And if you're not familiar with them, I would just personal plug here. I highly recommend you check it out. It is a fantastic product. And more importantly, it's a fantastic company. They had and were faced with an opportunity for national expansion. So they're manufacturing, they're producing their product here in the Central East Side. They had an opportunity to grow and increase their reach into the far eastern seaboard as well as the Midwest, really representing a growth opportunity for the company. I'm certain that came with a lot of elation, a lot of excitement, and a bit of a deep gulp and a lot of thought about how are they going to do that. And in working with the company, they needed some support. they were looking for ramping up their production so they'd be able to serve this new growth opportunity. If you imagine increasing the number of stores that you're in, just as an example, and this was a significant increase. Their current production levels aren't built to do that. And so that meant they needed new materials for their product to go into. They needed additional production to ramp up, to be ready to get on the store shelves and meet the demand. And we were able to help support this local company with a little bit of funding to help them with some of their inventory, their supplies, their accounts receivable. Again, helping to support jars and labels and packaging and the really critical pieces to get their product to market, not necessarily the sizzle, that you'd expect, but it's so critical for the business. And a little infusion of capital that we were able to help support them with was meaningful for the company as they continue to work to scale and grow. So our agency works again in sort of access to capital, technical assistance, and access to markets. Our programs are designed around that. And we work collaboratively with local government, with regional nonprofit and public-private partnerships. But we also work with those regulatory agencies. And I want to include them. Well, Garrett did mention the Governor's Regional Solutions team that we have the opportunity to be a part of. That's a chance for us to gather around a table with other agencies here in the metro region and talk about where we're seeing challenges, where we're looking at potential speed bumps or points of inflection for both businesses and for communities, and help to brainstorm solutions and think about ways we can help provide support. Those other agencies are a critical piece of the puzzle as well. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to mention that. With that, next slide, please. I'll turn it over to Nick to talk a little bit more about the direct work GPI is engaged in.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, good morning, Council President, Councilors, Metro staff. I want to spend this portion of the presentation walking through how business recruitment actually works and the tactical work that we do alongside our local and state partners in support of this effort. But to begin, next slide, please. Quick overview of Greater Portland, Inc. GPI is a public-private partnership. My job as head of business development is to attract businesses to the 7-county Greater Portland region. And we do this by providing confidential, no-cost assistance to domestic and international companies that are looking to invest and or grow here. We promote ourselves as a navigator of market intelligence, of connections, advocacy, and support. And to put our footprint into perspective, we operate on a $1.5 million annual budget with 3 business development full-time employees covering, again, that bi-state region. Our key services fall into several categories: project management, partner and resource access, data and research, and just general navigational support. These services show up and are very much useful in real projects, which we'll walk through in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. When we win a project, we produce outputs that advance economic prosperity. This means family wage jobs for residents. It means capital investment flowing into the region. It means an expanded tax base that funds public services. And over time, it builds economic resilience, a critical outcome because a diversified base of employers and industries makes the region less vulnerable to any single downturn. And these outputs don't just happen. They're a product of relationships. Successful business development depends on cultivating and maintaining relationships with a specific set of multipliers. Site selectors and real estate professionals who control which regions even get a look. Local and state practitioners are fellow economic developers who we partner with constantly. Our fellow foreign governments and consulates, especially given how much project work is now international. And our local headquarters and supply chain companies who often become our best referral sources because they know how the region works for their industry, what's missing from their supply chain, and who should be here who might not already be. This is fundamentally a relationship-based line of work. Most projects start with years of us being present, elevating the region's and the state's profile, and building trust with the people who inform where a company looks and where they land. Next slide, please. I want to spend some time on our process flow slide. This is where point of emphasis here, recruitment isn't a single effort or event. It's a process with distinct stages. And oftentimes our efforts don't work its way through all 6 steps here. But it always starts with finding and qualifying leads. Leads come from direct outreach, targeted digital marketing, site selector relationships, trade missions, referrals from, again, foreign governments and consulates, and conferences, expos, and conventions. We qualify these leads against our strengths as a region and as a state, and the industry development interests and goals as defined by the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. We're looking to match needs with what we can credibly deliver and what grows or fortifies our industrial base. And this is where a lot of the data and research comes into play. We do our homework first to know what to pursue and how to pursue it. A lead then becomes a project once a company shows real intent. They've engaged with us directly, they're comparing regions or states, and they need specific answers. And this is where we formally open a project record and start coordinating internally with regional and state partners. Site selectors or companies then send us detailed questionnaires called requests for information, often under tight deadlines, covering everything from available sites and buildings to utility capacity, labor market data, tax structure, and incentives offerings. We coordinate responses across multiple jurisdictions and partner agencies and package it into a single submission. This is really where our role as convener matters a lot. These submissions require group effort and deep collaboration with our local and state partners. Assuming our response holds up and we are still in competition, the company then shortlists the region for an in-person visit or a market visit. We design and lead these visits to include site tours, facility tours, meetings with utilities and workforce partners, introductions to peer companies or to other multipliers that can help detail the economic and industry landscape. And again, this is where relationships come back into play and good preparation compounds. A well-run visit can outweigh a competitor with marginally better numbers on paper. Once a company decides to move forward, we're still in contention, and perhaps they've even decided, yes, we're the place to locate. Our job shifts from courtship to execution support. That means navigating permitting, connecting them with real estate professionals and site development resources, and closing the deal, essentially. This is often a longer stage, and it's where we make sure we deliver on the things that we had proposed in previous stages. Once a project lands, we help tell that story. This is the final stage, but it's a really important one. Public announcements, press coverage, case studies. This closes the loop, and it does a couple things. It validates the investment, and it becomes new lead generation. Projects beget projects because other companies in the same industry take notice. And this is also what kicks off aftercare. The through line across all of these stages is that we collectively as economic development practitioners are the connective tissue. No single stage works in isolation. And again, we might not make it all the way through this process, but it takes a team effort and it can't be done alone. Next slide, please.
Can
Yes,
I
sir.
add just one thing? I'm trying to interject, but that promoting wins, I don't think we do as good a job of that as we could, candidly. And I mean that just generally within the ecosystem, whether it's not a knock on GPI by any means, but as a state, I'll say Business Oregon, we don't do a good enough job talking about those success stories. And oftentimes the media coverage or the above the fold headlines have a direct impact on our ability to both attract and retain businesses. And we ought to be telling our own story in a better way. It's probably true of government generally, but we don't do as good a job telling our own story and celebrating those wins, I think. So, sorry to.
No, that's okay. So what determines whether a project makes it through that process? For the region here, I find it coming down to these key six, though these are not the only six location factors that can drive a project. And they're in no particular order either. But I do think it's important for us to run through each very quickly. Sites and buildings, talent and workforce, power and infrastructure, operating costs, certainty and speed, and then quality of life, or we'll say lifestyle brand. Site selection runs as a structured elimination. Companies and their consultants start with a long list of regions and cut it down round by round based on these factors. We find that in a market evaluation, they're looking for reasons to cut us from contention against other competing markets nationally and internationally. And these are often the things that determine whether or not we're a viable place to do business. And then beyond viability, it's about what differentiates us, what sets us apart, and what puts us ahead of our peer cities, regions, and states.
Can I, Council President?
Yes, sir.
These are a solid six, but you sitting in front of a bunch of politicians. How much does politics play into this?
Mm-hmm. So I think one that is a bit of an umbrella location factor is business climate. And a lot of that comes down to perceptions of what it means to do business here and how business is done here. Real and perceived, a combination of both. And I see politics coming into play there, certainly. But Business Oregon colleagues, feel free to chime in if you have thoughts.
Feel free to. Yeah, I think the business climate is a right flag there, and you know, it's reflected. I don't know that it's here. It'll be on the next couple slides from now as well. Taxes and fees have an impact, as does the PR, as does the sense of place and the press that we're getting. All those things have an impact, and it's, you know, it's not any one thing. Councilor Simpson, I'd also say that for different companies that we're working to help recruit or companies we're retaining, they'll prioritize the list of what's going to drive business investment based on their own business values, their own needs. For some companies, it is entirely about time to get to market. Is there a site? Are we ready? Can we move? Is it predictable? And can we count on the goalpost is where it is and that's where it's going to stay? That has a huge impact. For other companies, it is about power and infrastructure that they need to operate. And we either have it or we don't. Sometimes that's a very complex issue, but it's one that we hear more and more about. But that certainly speed, operating costs is probably where the taxes and fees would group into that. The business environment, you know, we talk oftentimes about, or we used to more than we do today, about the second paycheck. And that is, you know, the sense of place. Part of, you know, you'll earn your wages at the place you work, but there's also the benefit of getting to live and work in this fabulous place in the Northwest and this special part of the world. That isn't sufficient to drive business investment. And I would say that if they're on level, the second paycheck or the quality of place has probably taken a bit of a back seat recently. And I'm not sure that addresses your question directly or if I'm just rambling, but there's a number of factors that would go into it, and operating costs is certainly a big part of that.
I appreciate it. No, you hit at it a little bit. You hit predictability. I mean, you need this to be predictable on this side of the table and other things. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Critical.
Yeah. That's certainly what certainty and speed speaks to. I have been given some anecdote from site selectors who've told me that being able to say with certainty, with 100% certainty, what it takes to get operational can be more important than many of the other location factors. And a specific example, I believe in Texas, where one community said, here's how fast we can do it. And the other community said, here's exactly what needs to happen in order to get operational. And it's that second community that won the project at the end of the day. So these are conditions that determine whether we compete really at all or in the first place. If, you know, for example, our permitting timelines are unpredictable, we lose that certainty and speed. If we don't have shovel-ready employment land, we lose before we are even made aware of a request for information. This is why, policy on permitting, zoning, and infrastructure investment have a direct and often invisible effect on whether we get a shot in the first place. So we have to make sure we're at the table to start with first, and then how we stand apart and set ourselves apart from our competition. Next slide, please. And to close with an example, really, product of working through that process. SPS Zipper is the second largest zipper manufacturer in the world. They chose Portland for their first ever US presence, establishing a marketing, sales, and R&D office here just a few months ago. And they actually had a celebratory ribbon cutting just a week and a half ago. This win came through high-touch relationship management and concierge-level service delivered via our network of partners and our Softland Portland program. We drew them here specifically because of our global and footwear and apparel ecosystem, legacy industry that drives a big portion of our economy, regional and state economy. And this company, they make components of a larger consumer product, and they wanted to be inside that same cluster and inform the design decisions and purchasing decisions of the companies, the brands that make those products, hopefully with their zippers on them. And I think Miss Yu, who's the US lead for SPS Zipper, says it really well. Material innovation, supply chain, all happens here. So there's gravity to this place. So when we talk about world-class industry, that is a leading location factor for SPS Zipper's decision to establish their office here. So qualified lead, a market visit, started this project, emphasized the depth and breadth of the ecosystem that's here, that they require to be within the orbit of the development support provided by local, regional, and state partners to get operational, and now the promotion of their presence, as evidenced by this Portland Business Journal article, among other efforts, helps us then hopefully generate the next lead. And we actually do have a few other apparel and footwear companies now in the works as a result. That's the model, and that's why continued investment in time and energy in this work pays for itself. I believe that is my last slide.
Yeah,
so I'll hand it back
there's one additional slide,
Yes, sir.
too, actually, if you would, to the next slide. This is a competitive environment, to be sure. And while GPI, Nick was talking about, and maybe more specifically, the example is a recruitment effort. And we're certainly engaged in recruitment, drawing new business. That's business expansion into the state or into the metro region. But the same factors that drive business investment are going to drive business decisions locally as well. When a business has to decide, are we ready to scale, or our lease is up? Are we staying here? Or what are we going to do? They're going to consider these same factors. And we wanted to include this sort of summary piece a bit. I mean, you can see within this, we have infrastructure related as it relates to the transportation system. Transportation infrastructure is critical, as well as water and energy. Taxes and fees are a part of it, as we just mentioned, that regulatory environment, time to get to market, time to be able to operationalize your business, and then employment land. It's all sort of wrapped up in this. And I just wanted to reiterate that it's not just about recruitment, it's also existing businesses. And while GPI is critical in helping to attract and work on that attraction and recruitment piece of it, we partner with them on that. The retention piece of it is really Business Oregon. This is our primary focus right now, is how do we keep the businesses and grow the businesses that are here? And we want to see businesses grow where they are. I will often share with folks, if a business is looking to expand and they're considering leaving, let's say they're based in Gresham and they're looking to relocate and they're thinking about going elsewhere, our first ask is, let us see if we can help you grow right here where you are. Let us see if you can grow in Gresham. It's better for their current workforce. It's beneficial that way. It has such an impact on a community when a business determines they need to do business elsewhere, even if it's elsewhere in the state. So our funding doesn't really support business relocation in that way. We look to help retain businesses. If they're looking to leave, we want to keep them here in Oregon. But our first and best effort is to help you grow and stay right where you're at. And that's not just about attracting global businesses, and it's not just large businesses. It's small businesses and medium-sized business as well. All of those pieces of our economy so critical. And we've been focused on traded sector business, manufacturing, export-oriented. We don't play in the retail space. The coffee shops, the retail establishments, the storefronts that you'll see on Main Street in that way. But I also want to use this opportunity to talk about the importance they serve in the overall economy and in that livability, sense of place, quality of life aspect. Those are the communities, those places that you go for the meetings as you're thinking about all kinds of decisions you make as a business. That may be at the local coffee shop or the restaurant or at your business. And so all of those components are critical. If you'd hit the next slide for me, we included our contact information here, and I know there's interest in maybe some deeper dives into some of the specific investment or target areas. I'm happy to follow and provide any of that as well, but you have our contact information here, and thanks so much for the opportunity.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent, thorough presentation. Let's have a discussion or comments or questions for our guests today. Councilor Simpson, and then we'll go to Councilor Huang.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Thank you again for that presentation. Top of mind, obviously, for everybody. It's been one for a while for a lot of folks in our community. And I will say for the people in District 1, the opportunity to create, to your point, jobs closer to home and that create that resiliency for our constituents is very, very much top of mind. But I do want to ask you this question. What are you hearing from existing employers about retention and expansion and some of the barriers that they're facing? You said you spoke about it, but could you give us a couple hits?
Yeah, I'll thank you, Councilor Simpson and councilors. I'll try to protect the innocent by changing the names a bit or not naming specific companies. But you know, the regulatory environment, the additive aspect of what sometimes feels like piling on obligations, and I'll maybe characterize them as headwinds that businesses have to navigate, as opposed to tailwinds to push them forward, to accelerate their growth. I hear frequently from businesses that they're struggling with the headwinds, those things that decelerate growth, that create challenges to their business being successful. And sometimes that's in the form of, I talked about our wanting to stack incentives where we can, where there might be a local, a regional, and a state effort. I think businesses often feel that stackable effect as it relates to the various layers of taxes, fees, and obligations they have. And I also want to add, I won't say never. There are very few businesses that I meet with that will say, we don't like it here. We don't want to be here. It is more often than not, it's a business decision that's based on, we want to do everything we can to stay where we are. We're here because we love it here and we want to grow here. But the struggle's real, and people are feeling like they've got to find a way to navigate through that. And so I'm probably dancing around it a little bit, but the reality is what I'm hearing from businesses is that it's a tough time economically for the state from a state standpoint. And businesses also feel that difficulty at the local level. And so, you know, our responsibility as Business Oregon is to try to help businesses have an environment in which they can thrive and that they can grow jobs and grow wealth for themselves and for their employees and keep people employed. But it's a challenging time, to be sure.
For sure.
I just want to put 2 cents on that because it kind of ties back to the presentation Lorelei gave, Eco Northwest, with the population stagnation decline and the federal trade uncertainty. It's made nationally these markets hyper competitive. So what I'm hearing from businesses is Arizona's calling us
Mhm,
every week. Michigan's calling us and just offering us a blanket check of money. So I just think it's on a retention standpoint, it's hyper competitive right now, state v state for these homegrown businesses and trying to keep them here.
Yeah, I think water is going to be a key resource in about 30 years that people are then going to come back around to. But I do want to say this because Councilors Lewis, President Gonzalez, and I, we worked on creating a tool for the region to utilize. I think most peer regions have one, but we created a site selector program for you to be able to go ahead and do this work for growth, for traded sector partners to be able to take a look at those lands. And I think you have a collaborative partner in us and this council and this agency. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I can at least say, we are a partner. We're here. We're at the table. We want to continue to drive this conversation with you all. So thank you.
Councilor Wong.
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Gosh, thanks so much for your presentation. I learned a lot. Wish we had this a year or two ago as we kind of embarked on this field of work. But I think just one big picture question to start. You have a slide with like different players like GPI and Prosper. In your words, what is Metro's role in the ecosystem? What do you think we should be doing kind of big picture wise?
You want to take that one, Dave?
Certainly, back to, what makes us a viable market for business growth? What are the conditions that we need? I think Metro and their role in helping us manage employment lands, available shovel-ready employment lands is a critical function. Because the site selectors that I work with, they see through the headlines, they're looking at the real things that make or break businesses' ability to be successful here. And if there is no physical space for them to establish their formal presence, whether it's a research and development facility, distribution warehouse, full corporate campus, again, we're not on the list to start with. And that is in part reputational too, right? I have site selectors who I have to correct and challenge pretty regularly about what is and is not, again, perceived versus real in terms of those conditions. So yeah, I'd start there, but.
The only thing I'd add, because we were trying to answer this question at Multnomah County as well, of like what these sports slides and the different ecosystem there and figuring out your levels of, do you want to be aware or in the conversation versus what are things that you want to own and kind of focus in on. I think that for your group, again, defining role clarity in these times where we all have limited resources, we've got to be scrappy and well coordinated and not overlap. So however it lands in that shake in the mix, and I've been following the work that y'all have been doing, again, here to support, but also in limited resource times, we don't want to duplicate each other.
And I'll add my 2 cents to that one as well. At the
4 cents.
4 cents at this point, yeah. I'm trying to keep it to 2. In the conversation with Multnomah County, a similar question came up, and my response to them was maybe a little more direct, and that was identify those areas that are your primary charge, that you're focused on, and look to ways within your existing programs that you can help provide tailwinds, help accelerate business development, and I'll say in community development, because again, those go together hand in hand. The infrastructure and the business development piece have to work together for success. And rather than looking to create a new widget, for lack of a better way to put it, look at the widgets that already exist, look at the tools that exist within this ecosystem, and then look at your own organizational charge and determine how can we best do the work that we need to do that's so critical in a way that helps support business development.
I have like a million questions, but I'm gonna keep it tight so I can let my colleagues ask some questions too. But just on the industrial lands readiness, on this side of the table, when we talk about industrial land readiness, we'll hear, this jurisdiction has this many like companies interested and they've signed NDAs, and if you don't do this, we're gonna lose out. I'm just wondering, like, how do you think we on this side of the table should think about that? Because like when you have interest, but there's NDAs and we have like, I don't know who it is, I don't know what sector it is, I don't know how many jobs, it's really hard for us to be like, yeah, this is a great opportunity, let's do it. So there's a lot of this like, trust us and they will come. And I'm wondering how you think about that and approach that as like, is that trust warranted, or is that a lot of it like just kind of talk right now? And I understand, we need site readiness, industrial land, but like the lack of transparency, which I understand for business reasons, makes it really hard for us as policymakers to make the right decision, because I don't know. So how much stock in faith should we be putting in those kind of arguments?
You take first stab at that one. Large corporate relocation or expansion work is highly susceptible to information liability. And so that's why we see NDAs come through primarily by way of site selection consultants or representatives of companies representing big projects. I think for GPI, our North Star is the SEDS. That tells me what to pursue. What do we want? What is going to help advance those outputs and outcomes that define prosperity for us? And that includes industries of focus. What do we want on a parcel or in an existing really nice building with clean room space, or whatever it might be, with good access to air cargo infrastructure, things like that. So I think deciding what we want, it does come down to trust, and those are the relationships I build and my colleagues at Business Oregon build, and municipal colleagues even build with those site selectors. I also spent a lot of time sleuthing to try and figure out if there is a codename project, I get pretty close to understanding who they are and whether that is something that aligns well with our industrial base and our economic goals as a region. But it really does. Trust is an important part of this process. And I think marketing the region to target audiences, target industries that would be welcomed with open arms and will be something that we would champion. Having a presence here is a great place to start too, right? That's a good upstream tactic we can use to make sure that we're garnering the right interest. Because again, it's not my job to convince every business on the planet that they should be operating here, because that's simply not true. Some companies belong in other parts of the country and other parts of the world, and that's okay. But there are things that we can offer here that very few places on the planet can offer too. And we need to make sure that the right companies hear that and understand that value proposition.
And I just add, site preparedness doesn't have to be such an opaque or undefined thing. And you can help through the good work of your technical staff and others get our hands around what are these industrial lands that we have today, what level of site preparedness are they at or not, what takes it there, and then what are those factors you want to see in place when a recruitment does come to make sure to build off what Nick said at the end, that it's the right business for the type of quality and community that we want to have. So by doing more of that on the front end, we'll be more prepared and clear versus kind of where we're at now, where it's a bit of a mix and unclear at times.
I don't know what the right system would be, but it's just like,
yeah,
when there's asks, it's like, I want to know roughly the sector, what's the potential return on investment, whatever. And it's just like, if we don't have that information, it's just hard to be like, here's a blank check, we don't have money, but that sort of thing.
But outside of the NDA aspect of it, I just would add, if we use the expression right business or wrong business kind of thing, I would say, our work from a state agency standpoint is to support local priorities in that way. We of course have state directive that the legislature's given us and the governor's office. But if a local jurisdiction doesn't support a business recruitment effort for any number of reasons, we as a state are far less likely to say, well, we're going to come in and we think they ought to be there. So I wanted to just address that right and wrong concept. It's less about a sort of preferential aspect and more about are they a good fit, and does the local jurisdiction, the local municipality and local community support them?
Thanks. Can I ask one more question? Of course. Okay, sorry. When we're talking about attractiveness of a state as well, I understood that back in the 90s, 2000s, housing costs were potentially one of the things that were attractive for our state and region. Is that something that you're still, like, housing costs have gone up? Does that make us less attractive? Like, is that something that companies are thinking about for their workforce, or like cost of living is too high, it doesn't work for us, sort of thing?
Well, I'll take a quick first stab at that and say that, oftentimes our recruitment officers we'll talk about Oregon as the affordable option along the West Coast. If we're looking at California and Washington, we're ready to compete on affordability that way. Quality of life, certainly. I'll take the Northwest any day over any other part of the country. But we talk about it that way. If you're looking at, if a company's coming in with a site selector or otherwise, and they're looking at, well, we're looking at cost of living for our staff in, I don't know, Mississippi and Oregon and Ohio. That's going to be a very different sort of conversation. But again, to the recruitment, the sort of key factors and how different companies prioritize those things differently. We're well positioned here in Oregon. I'll refer to California as the customer oftentimes because it's such a huge economy. There's so much opportunity there. We're a great place to have your business headquartered and selling into California and selling into the rest of the world that way. The housing costs have a direct impact on the employees and their experience getting to work, whether or not you can find staff that are willing to commute. Oftentimes folks need and rely on, hope I'm not going too far afield here, Councilor, but staff will rely on transit and the transportation system. Again, the infrastructure piece is so critical. That transportation infrastructure is a huge part of that. Housing costs that's an additive cost. And if you have communities for whom you may have folks that are living in groups, or you've got folks living together to help defray some of that high housing cost, and then you add transportation difficulties to that and challenges with getting to and from the workplace, suddenly, if a company doesn't have a ready workforce and a way for their workforce to continue to, the staff are going to have to make decisions. And so those things will have that kind of an impact on those businesses and their ability to grow as well.
Yeah, more on the retention side, I think it comes in.
Yeah.
Like, I used to be the transportation policy planner for City of Tualatin. And I know I'd have businesses out there who couldn't fill jobs because of the long transit or lack of transit even. And I know, Councilor Lewis, you have that out in the Oregon City business industrial areas as well. Less from an attraction standpoint though, housing wise.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. Councilor Lewis?
Sure, thank you. First, I just want to lift up that the two success stories you offered us, peanut butter and zippers, products that were available in their exact same state 100 years ago. So very surprising that we've had two examples today that were not tech driven. And I think that's both telling of where the real money is and where the real value is right now. But we're all also hearing from folks who are chasing, frankly, high risk, high reward around tech and tech innovation. So I just want to put that out there, not for you to respond to, but for us to think through. We've got to get it right for the bread and butter, the zippers and the peanut butters of the world. And if we get it right for them, hopefully that's laying the foundation for our tech workers. When I think about where we are as a region, we've obviously kind of danced around our role in site readiness. You've explicitly today said that's where Metro can play our part. It's where our work group kind of put the gravity of our recommendations. And frankly, it's where Business Oregon exited many years ago, saying, look, our first and foremost role is to work with businesses already here, help them grow, help them shift, help them be responsive. But that's left kind of this gaping hole. And Nick, you do a great job working with site selectors. Can you just tell us what technical site readiness information, if you had it in your back pocket, would be the card you would want to put on the table to balance out all those other 5 factors?
Timing is critical to every business relocation or expansion project. So Being aware of that timing and being able to establish guarantees. So again, speed is important, but I would argue guarantees are more influential in creating that certainty. Business requires certainty in order to invest. And so I would point to timing, and I'd point to certainty as being the thing that I think maybe isn't initially thought of, but is absolutely critical to being able to, again, compete in the first place. And again, the relationships that we collectively maintain as economic development practitioners from local to state level with site selection consultants, we have history with individuals. It's person-to-person relationships. We need to put our best foot forward always, because it will inform the next chance that they have to put another company in front of us. And so back to the reputational piece too, if we can show them how we do it and do it well and be consistent with delivery in providing certainty and good timing. I think that's critical right now.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. And second?
Excellent.
Can I
Oh
have a
yeah, of
second?
course.
Okay. So I think we've all talked about what we could do better, what we're working to do better with. Nobody today has articulated what is it that we do well? Because obviously we're doing something good.
We're an innovation hub. I think that's a competitive advantage we have. 91% of the businesses in Multnomah County are small businesses. We're a great place to start, grow your business, innovate. Our U of O, OSU, OSU, I was thinking about food and agriculture, and that we have these world-renowned restaurants and places to grow food as well. And we're starting to fill in a bit of what's in between those. So the OSU Innovation Hub and a lot of the brands we know now nationally, Smith's Tea, Salt and Straw, others, they come through that innovation line. They're able to scale. So that's a piece that we're really doing well. We have these natural assets, beautiful quality of life to kind of bring people here and as a selling point. That's what we do well. What else would you all add?
Well, I'd add along the innovation side of things, some of the companies that we didn't reflect in the examples, we punch well above our weight as it relates to the talented, high degree engineers, for example, that are coming out of the research universities. And we've got a tremendous sort of talent quotient as it relates to the workforce here. The labor shed is unique. We have a district, if you look at the economic district, that incorporates Southwest Washington. And we know that, our labor shed, depending on the industry and the position, is going to draw from that. It's much wider than just the local community in that way. And so we have a strong bio and life science industry here, great research universities, the quality of life, that second paycheck. I know I mentioned it's playing a little second place, but it's a critical part of it. We don't give away land the way Texas does and the way other states do, and we're quick to tell folks that. That's not part of the value proposition here in Oregon. And it's part of what makes the place unique, and it's part of what keeps the place unique in that way. But we have to be competitive. And so I think what we do well also is try to balance. We do well trying to balance the place and the productivity, I'll say, for lack of a better way to put it. Both that balance between quality of life and the production, the development of product and services.
I'd take to a clean building energy. I hope that the solution for carbon-less concrete comes out of Portland. I think there's things we're doing in the building innovation space that we could be, and there's some great things. I've been surprised getting into the business world now of how much small, unique, advanced manufacturing we have throughout the region, doing things that are very kind of like Portland, Oregon way, like clean tech, clean energy, finding these solutions. So I just wanted to sprinkle that.
Yeah, that's all within innovation. If you look at our legacy industries, they've had to innovate as well. So you look at mass timber and building materials, and very exciting stuff happening. Collaboration with, again, the universities and industry to develop product and build out what is a you probably couldn't overstate how important the forestry and wood products industry was to our state. And I would argue still is to our state, along with ag, of course. And so that innovation is reflected in those key industries, including our legacy industries. And I think we've got a place to lead in that way as well.
When I spend time on an expo floor or at a trade mission talking to companies who are just familiarizing themselves for the first time with Pacific Northwest, with Oregon, with the greater Portland region, the majority of the time, the first question they ask is, who's there? So the industrial base that we have now is our first strength that we must lean into. The legacy industry that has put us on the map in certain ways. Our end-to-end semiconductor supply chain is world-class. We currently are host to the most advanced machine in the world in Hillsboro, Oregon. Now, state of New York is about to get 2 of them, but that's incredible. Like, what a talking point. The most complex machine in the world operating here with hundreds, I'm sure, of people working on it. We are our own very special semiconductor hub. So that's one example. But I also want to emphasize where industries intersect. I had the privilege of touring the Knight Cancer Research Institute just last week as part of the Governor's Life Sciences Competitiveness Task Force. And I met the Biofabrication Hub principal investigators. This is a team of 9 or 10 PIs with a handful of other bio researchers that are using semiconductor equipment to advance biomedical research. So this is where we see high technology then intersect with that life sciences industry that is burgeoning right now. And that's when we talk about resiliency, that's where I think we have a play. And when we talk about differentiation, we are a boutique. I talk about the Portland region as a boutique market with very niche strengths. We do very specific things better than most other places on the planet. And I find that most of those strengths come into play when we look at those intersections between industry. So yeah, great example. If you haven't, I'm really impressed by them. I'm already looking to see how I can work with them. But Biofabrication Hub at OHSU, incredible. Dr. Drucker is leading the way on that front.
Field trip.
Field trip.
Impressive.
Cool.
Big Thermo Fisher electron microscopes on these like anti-vibration plates. Very cool stuff. Check it out.
Nice. Thanks, Nick. Councilor Nolan, did I see your hand up earlier? Did you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Mr. President, but the discussion has already covered the topics I wanted to.
Okay, great. Thanks. Just wanted to check. Well, I'm glad that we were able to. Councilor Rosenthal, did you want to add something? No. Okay. Thanks. Just didn't know if I heard something. I took a lot of really detailed notes. My page is like full of squibbles here, but a few things. I mean, I've spent the last 12 to 18 months talking with folks in Oregon, in the region, about how, you know, one of Metro's primary roles for a generation or two was to manage growth and the incredible consequences of growth. And now that we have little growth to manage in this period, I think our region has not just a challenge, but I think a really special opportunity to build new muscles, to explore and to find find our stride again. So I think that your presentation here is really timely. As Councilor Simpson mentioned, as all the council has mentioned, we have not just I think a unique vantage point, but a real desire to lead meaningful, sustainable, durable economic development for this place. You know, one small comment is, I think on a national level and also maybe locally in our politics, it's interesting because I'm seeing like a really anti-corporate like backlash in politics here in Oregon, city of Portland, and in other cities in the Portland metro area. And so it's interesting to me to also hear the message about like our employers and how they're feeling. It's almost like a tale of two cities in terms of the fact patterns or things that we want to chase in terms of that. But I want to hold the tension there in terms of what I see as emerging kind of politics or headwinds as well in the policy space. And I'm thinking, reflecting, what is our role as policymakers to tell a story and to try and piece information together so that the public also supports economic development, which is something that is equally as important as doing the economic development. I think a lot of people worry that growth happens to them rather than for them, and that's on us to figure out how we manage through the morass of that question. One kind of small question that I would love to ask the group. This is in terms of our shovel-ready employment lands and some of the really, really exciting work that Metro is doing there. Before I was the council president, I was the counselor to District 4, and right now District 4, one of the big topics is data centers. I don't know if you've heard about those before. I'm thinking about our land use system as we move forward with these shovel-ready employment lands. I think there's a tension that I'm seeing in recruitment in terms of short-term gains or quick cash with hyperscale data centers or technology in that space versus long-term gains. And how do we create an environment that looks at long-term gains that people want to buy in and support, and less of the short-term gains that maybe erode support for the things that we agree on? So I'm thinking about that question. And as Metro really looks to expand, I think, our leadership and our funding role in job-ready employment lands, how do we hold the space between short-term gains and long-term plays? Thanks. Curious to hear your thoughts.
Maybe brief anecdote on that front. As part of major recruitment project work, some of that due diligence, the following the RFI submission and more towards helping to answer additional questions, a 10, 15, 20-year cost horizon analysis is something that we have done and is done pretty regularly as a part of that due diligence, thinking about company who invests time and resources into a place, how they benefit over a period of time in a way that allows us to compete against the likes of other states that are able to offer major cash incentives right out of the gate. I find that that's actually a really helpful exercise because it lends itself to working with companies who are thinking on a 15, 20 plus year horizon and not just thinking about their bottom lines in 3 to 5 years, but thinking almost generationally in terms of their presence in a place. That is what I would consider to be a values aligned company in an industry that we want. And it's, like I said, it's a thing that we have done collaboratively in part with our local and state partners as part of the recruitment process in the past. It's a really helpful exercise that, again, helps us find the right partnerships with the right businesses to invest here and helps us stand out in a very competitive landscape because it's hard to compete with the cash that can be thrown around by other states. So we have to play to win and make sure that we're pursuing the right opportunities for us.
And I'll just add, I mean, it's a political question, and us as good bureaucrats here, we're going to wait to see what the Prosperity Council and the governor's recommendations and how that shapes the work that we do. I would say, though, it comes down for us, and Jeff mentioned just like the piece of retention and these businesses that have been here that have fought and grown and are trying to stay and fight and have other states trying to pick them off and everything. That is, I think, where as bureaucrats and as folks that are working directly with these businesses, we can lift up those stories to people like yourselves and the governor and others of what it takes to stay here in this place. Because I think through those, you're going to have your most direct feedback of answering that question of growth for them and not to them. We're going to work with local partners, city, county level, who can get at that neighborhood level that can see how do you strike that balance of community benefit but economic growth as well. So I think it's a bit of this is just going to be on a kind of piece by piece basis, and then whatever happens sort of above us, and we're directed to dutifully do. So,
Yeah, thanks. Well, we're gonna wrap up so we can move on with our work session, but this was just delightful conversation. I think culture change starts with, conversations like this and shifting our priorities and seeing what we can do. So thank you, and thank you for tracking our work sessions and being a part of our journey here. Oh, Councilor Lewis wants to add
I
something.
just want to plant one seed. I know that Business Oregon has recently welcomed in the arts, which are a major employer. So that's not your line of work, but you have colleagues who do it. You mentioned Main Street. Oregon Main Street program is currently under Parks. That's not a natural fit. They do a good job, but I would love to plant the seed that maybe you and the legislature and the governor could have a conversation about Business Oregon working more closely with Main Street. You don't have to say anything. Just planting the seed on the record.
Thank you for that, Councilor.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Another major topic that we are tackling this year on the council is the Regional Transportation Plan. The RTP is one of our most critical transportation planning documents in the region. It defines our vision and our goals and sets the policies that will help us get there. The RTP also establishes federal funding eligibility for projects in the plan. Our last RTP update was in March when the team introduced the scoping phase and we provided some early feedback in the process. Today, we're going to hear updates on engagement activities, followed by a review of the draft work and engagement plans. And as usual, we'll have the opportunity to have a discussion, comment, ask questions to the lovely team that is joining us today. Ted Liebold, our Transportation Policy Director, Kim Ellis, Regional Transportation Planning Manager, Andre Lightsey Walker, RTP Project Manager, and Alfredo Haro, RTP Engagement Lead. To you.
Great. Thank you, Council President Gonzalez and members of the council. Great introduction. I don't have a lot more to say other than we are here today to review our progress in the update of the 2028 Regional Transportation Plan and get your early feedback on the draft work plan and engagement strategy. As you sort of described already, this is a work in progress right now. Some details are still being worked on. We have several conversations ahead over the next several months to fully shape this work plan and the engagement plan. And we are working to bring you back a finalized version for your formal consideration in early October. Today, we are looking for your collective input on the overall general direction and also to know if there's anything vitally missing that you feel needs to be incorporated into the plans as they are currently contemplated. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andre and Alfredo to walk us through this information, give you a short presentation, and then we'll start gathering your input. So, thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. So yeah, we're going to be reviewing what we've heard from you originally and sort of what we've been up to. I'm really excited to share. We've been hard at work. I'm hearing a lot from our partners and just excited to bring that information back to you and get your guidance on where we're at so far. So we'll be presenting our draft work plan and engagement plan, as well as an update of our timeline and where we're at. And then we'll be going through some of the key milestones and phases with the plan development. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start off by grounding us in some of the early conversations that we had with you all. This has really been foundational to all the engagement work that we've been doing since we last met in March. This is Metro's plan. Yes, it takes support from all of our regional partners, but your guidance and leadership is critical to the success of this plan. And so we've been going out in community and in our partner conversations and really grounding in what you shared with us as some of your key objectives for this update. And so just wanted to quickly walk through those again, just to reframe us and make sure we're all on the same page. So you shared with us that elevating safety as a priority was critical for this update, as well as strengthening the region's economic focus, which continues to be a conversation that keeps coming up, as well as setting the table for updating our region's transit vision, especially after our update of the future vision and this RTP update. You asked us to be very clear on available revenues to support future efforts and to make sure that we're prepared to bring future funding, transportation funding to the region. We also mentioned navigating choices and trade-offs, recognizing that there is some uncertainty at the state and federal levels, and that we need to be very creative in the ways that we navigate those potential trade-offs. You also asked us to make sure that we're communicating transparently about our ability to meet our region's climate goals. And you asked us to elevate community voices and priorities, and making sure that we are optimizing local participation by coordinating our outreach with the good work that's already taking place across the region. Next slide, please. We also, in March, came to you with our 2023 outcomes and RTP goals and just asked you, hey, do these still resonate? Do these still feel good? The goals of safety, equity, mobility, a thriving economy, and climate action resilience. And you gave us a thumbs up. And so just wanted to share that we have showed up to all of our conversations, bringing your visions to those conversations and making sure folks are in alignment with those, and have gotten really great feedback, and people are feeling good and excited. And I just want to thank you all for your leadership and really grounding us in this work so that we can move forward with clear vision. Next slide, please. So this slide covers our planning phases. And so you have seen this. There has been some slight updates to this since we last came to you. The big key is an update to the scoping phase, where we did make an extension, where we launched in January, but we're going to be moving, wrapping up in September. We're actually coming to you October 1st to ask for formal approval of our work plan and engagement plan. And so what that additional time has allowed us to do is really dive in with our partners and have a lot deeper conversations. And it also allowed us some additional time to really work through the work plan, get our dates in alignment, and continue to work through coordinating committees as well as other Metro committees. And so I'm going to walk you through actually all the phases a little more in depth. And so excited to do that. Next slide, please. So yeah, going to walk you through the work plan, which we're really, really excited to present and get your feedback on as well. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start off by just providing you, you have a full copy in the packet, but wanted to just give you an outline of the work plan. And so this really just covers all the sections within it. And the real goal here is that anybody, regardless of their experience engaging with a regional transportation plan, can pick up this document and feel like they have a good, clear understanding of where we're going throughout this planning process. And so we start with a work plan overview that just sort of talks about what the work plan is, what it covers, as well as some purpose and background information. We go through our project goals and desired outcomes, the policy foundation. We talk about the decision-making framework so people actually understand where decisions are made and how work gets done. We also cover the phases and milestones, which we'll be going through today, as well as outlining our engagement and consultation activities, our post-adoption and implementation activities, and our conclusion. And so really excited to jump in to those phases so you have a little bit better of understanding where you fit in to this document. And so next slide, please. So phase one, as I mentioned, is scoping phase. That's a phase we're in right now, and it is a shorter phase relative to the entirety of the planning document, but it's actually so critical to the work, and it really sets us up for success throughout the planning process. So wanted to highlight a couple of key elements that you all will be involved in. And so because you are superstars, and you're our North Star sort of guiding us through this work, we have stars appointed to sort of areas that we think are particularly important for you to focus on. And so during the scoping phase, you actually sort of in the scoping phase for us by should you choose to approve our work and engagement plan, which we'll be bringing to you in October in its final form. But today is really an opportunity for you to work through that and give us any comments, make sure we're on the right page, heading in the right direction. But the scoping phase is really about making sure we have shared understanding of our regional priorities. And so we've been going out to regional partners, which Alfredo will talk about more in depth, making sure that our partners understand their role throughout the plan, recognizing that yes, Metro is responsible for producing the plan, but huge elements of the planning process require coordination with our partners and inputs from their transportation system planning work. And then making sure that we're building a technical foundation for the later phases in the planning process. Next slide, please. So phase 2 is our needs analysis and our revenue forecast. And so a couple of key places we wanted you to focus on is the regional transportation needs update, where it's really existing conditions. Where are we at? What's going on in our region right now? What has changed since the last update? We're going to be developing our draft revenue forecast, where we ask partners to share how much revenue they're anticipating for their projects, as well as federal and at the federal and state level. I think it's really important to note that the RTP cannot project spending higher than anticipated revenue coming in. So it's going to be really critical to get that right, and recognizing sort of the financial condition that we're in as a region now. This will be a very important element to focus on. We'll also be looking at our evaluation framework and how we're evaluating the projects that show up on the project list. And then if there are any updates to policy language, that's where it would be reflected during this phase. And so we'll also be defining our call for projects process for our partners and making sure that it works with their timelines and that they have all the support they need to successfully submit projects to us. And then during phase 2, we'll also start drafting our initial chapters of the RTP. So a lot of work, but really excited to conclude phase 1 and really roll up our sleeves and get to work. Next slide, please. So phase 3 is our call for projects and project evaluation. So we will be launching our call for projects in February of 2027, and that will go from the 1st of February to March 12th. And that's the opportunity for partners to submit their projects to us. And then we will start building our constrained and strategic project lists. And then we will begin to do performance evaluation on those said projects. We'll ask for feedback on the project list and evaluation results. It's also important to note, and this star is a little out of place, but we're going to be considering outcomes from the 2027 legislature. We're not sure what will happen, but we want to make sure that we're holding space for if there is any revenue changes or any significant transportation relevant legislation, that it is infused into the RTP. And then we will continue to draft our later chapters 5 through 8 through this work period. Next slide, please. Phase 4 is our public review and pre-approval. Really excited about this phase, and we will be working very closely with you all to work through that pre-approval. So we will be releasing the draft RTP and our climate smart strategy for public review. We will then, so that'll be a 45-day public comment period where anyone is able to provide comments. We will be tracking those comments and then making decisions about are we going to make the changes that are suggested? Or are we just acknowledging that the comments came in and there's nothing further to do? But at the end of that process, we will be coming to you asking for preliminary approval of both the RTP and the climate smart strategy. And that will set us up for phase 5. Next slide, please. Which is the final legislative adoption. And so in theory, the pre-approval phase will make phase 5 a lot easier. So we'll be able to come to you with the additional comments we've received and incorporated. We will have a final engagement report completed so we can show you what we've heard. We will be preparing our adoption legislation and coming to you for final approval by November 30th of 2028. And then we all get to celebrate. I'm gonna, next slide, please. I'm gonna pass it over to Alfredo to talk about some of the engagement work that's been taking place.
Thanks, Andre. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, I just want to take a few moments to share some updates regarding the engagement activities we've had so far. For this update, Metro is once again committed to developing an engagement strategy that is reflective of the region's communities, and there's meaningful participation throughout the update. And we're accomplishing this by leaning on the strengths of our regional partnerships and community relationships. There's a list here of the groups and folks that we'll be engaging with, from Metro Council and JPAC to county coordinating committees, tribes, and resource agencies. I have some slides later that will go into detail of what we've gathered so far from those conversations. But overall, I'm really proud of that first bullet point, the reviewing previous engagement and consultation feedback. really speaks to how we're not starting from scratch. It's a reminder that engagement was central to the 2023 update. Similarly, Metro has done engagement with other transportation-related projects, from emergency transportation routes planning, cooling corridors, addressing extreme heat, and also the community connector study exploring how to further address the gaps in the region. So we're revisiting those reports, and it's really allowing us to synthesize the takeaways and come to community, not asking the same questions, and helps us kind of feel like we have a head start on what the needs are. Next slide, please. It's a good segue to reviewing our draft engagement plan. We did include a draft version. There's a 2-page overview as well as the more complete one found in your packets, but this plan starts off by exploring and defining what exactly is the public when we talk about public engagement. This is done by exploring the regional demographics of the region and what we're seeing, especially in trends when we look at populations related to race, national origin, income level, disability, and languages spoken in the region. So it's important to note that this section here does fall in line with Title VI civil rights, non-discrimination compliance efforts. We also want to demonstrate our understanding of the region's needs. So this is where we found that retroactive analysis of the previous engagement we did. It lists the engagement goals, which I have a slide here in a little bit that I'll get to review. We talk about the strategies for broad engagement formats. That's listing our key partners, local level, community leaders, business leaders, to name a few. It reviews the in-person, virtual survey formats we use and narrative approaches on how we'll use and balance technical data and lived experience. And of course, our tentative engagement timeline and milestones by phase. So next slide, please. I bring to you 4 engagement goals that we have for this update. So this is kind of at the high level. The final version of these will be in a SMART goal format. So meaning they're specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And that format just really helps us demonstrate how the public input is informing the RTP creation. It also helps us establish success indicators and evaluation processes. And of course, just keep our work transparent and accountable. So the first one is regional perspectives are reflected in the plan. We know that we want to engage broadly, so across the region. We want to hear not just from central Portland here and Multnomah County. We want to hear from different parts of Washington and Clackamas counties, and also include communities that are underserved in the region. We want to encourage participants to engage in local transportation decision-making. This is actually my favorite engagement goal, because several jurisdictions across the region are updating their transportation system plans, or they have their own local transportation projects going on. And we just want to find ways where we can amplify that work or find ways to collaborate. So that could look like bringing timely information to community, or bringing community-specific input that we're hearing to the county coordinating committees that we're scheduled to attend. The third one is just explaining the RTP decision-making structure, that kind of 101, discuss funding sources, project timelines, and just really distilling kind of the technical pieces of this work to community and community partners. And it's just an ask that we keep seeing over and over. Finally, integrating lived experience alongside technical data. We're collecting the lived experience, we're reporting on it, and we're considering throughout the process. And we want to have a way to document and demonstrate how their input shaped the RTP development at the end. So next slide, please. And again, just little touch points that Andre mentioned brings us back to your role in the RTP engagement plan. And throughout all of this work, engagement is happening at every phase, and it might look different, but we will be seeking feedback one way or another. So we really seek input and guidance from Metro Council regarding the overall public engagement strategy, continuing to identify and calibrate our meaningful engagement opportunities, and of course, provide leadership and policy direction for us. Next slide. Yeah, changing gears, this is the content I'm most excited to share with you all today. But yeah, mid-scoping phase is up and running, and we're setting up our processes before we get into more detailed work. We're ensuring our work supports and is coordinating with the existing Metro and partner efforts. And yeah, it's up and running, and there's multiple summary reports that are being developed. But here's like a little brief kind of preview. Next slide, please. Yeah, the past couple of months, it's felt like Andre and I have had a meeting, a really exciting meetings and roadshows. And it's included presenting to folks all over Metro, county coordinating committees. There's been a lot of acronyms. We've met with all the acronyms, and yeah, these presentations have been a mix of RTP 101, explaining our processes and timelines, and how engagement will look like throughout the update. So these are some of the aggregated takeaways. We've shared the JPEG and Metro Council priorities that Andre reviewed, and folks are especially supportive of the RTP goals from 2023. Folks, again, they want that clear explanation of processes, roles, and timeline, speaking to like our engagement goal. And there's just an eagerness to have this transparent conversation around funding and options and outcomes related to this update and the challenges that transportation faces. Yeah, and this also kind of speaks to that last bullet point there of just the update to be grounded in current realities. We did have a TPAC workshop in early June, and folks were very engaged and wanting to provide input on project evaluation and outcomes. And yeah, it's been nice to hear just collaborative opportunities with other local plans, climate, and economic efforts going on in the region. Next slide, please. Yeah, we've gotten feedback from community partners, namely from our Community Leaders Forum in mid-May. We met with representatives from community-based organizations. They had a variety of interests from climate, land use, transportation, disability advocacy, waste and recycling, environmental advocacy, among others. We had an organization who supports rural families in Clackamas County. So their work mainly happens outside of the UGB, but it was clear that these families rely on our transportation system, particularly around emergency planning. So it was really important for them to be there and give feedback. And yeah, again, we see this support for the 2023 RTP goals, that they're still relevant, and a vision of our successful regional transportation system. From these participants in particular, we did hear that safety, affordability, equity, reliability, and climate continue to be top of mind for these participants. And again, the RTP is we can get lost in the technical work. There's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of acronyms, and we continue to hear requests for plain language, for accessible communication, meaningful engagement opportunities, and this interest in finding ways to collaborate and for them to contribute in this process. Next slide, please. Federal agencies and state and natural resource agencies are critical partners to this work. Yeah, just for clarity, that the title says to date, so we do have one scheduled for Thursday, but we've had organizations from ODOT to the Bureau of Labor of Industries, Department of Energy, Clean Water Services. This Thursday, it's more of a climate focus, so we're seeing agencies like wildlife and land and environmental agencies, RSVP, but yeah, more to come on this. But so far, again, these meetings begin with a 101, the timeline review, what the engagement looks like. We went over a set of questions, and yeah, they're a good takeaway was, again, the continued support for the RTP goals that we have, and they're almost identical to the Oregon Transportation Plan. So just for ODOT to confirm, that was, I think, a really great takeaway. They're really supportive of our data-informed RTP update, so they're crucial partners in that. So we rely on data sets that these agencies hold and maintain. And again, this expressed coordination around climate and environmental efforts. Regional agencies like CTRAN are interested, though they're not in our boundary across the region. We still see a lot of connection and coordination opportunities there. Really amazing work happening around workforce development and youth engagement with an agency, and that's a potential touch point for us. And ongoing conversation around transportation, electrification, and energy planning that the team wants us to consider in this update. Next slide, please. Okay, so this kind of brings me to engagement and progress. Yeah, that scoping phase goes until September, and yeah, more roadshows for myself, Andre, and Kim. And for example, we have our in-person conversations with regional and elected leaders. Yeah, we're stressing in person here, so it's really an opportunity for us. You know, it's going to be a long couple months. It can feel like, and a lot of important conversation happening. And it's important to us to have just the face-to-face meeting right now, build that connection. It's important to note that last update, these in-person meetings weren't possible or weren't happening. So this is kind of something new and exciting. These meetings are attended by the RTP team, Ted, Transportation Policy Director, as well as PD&R Director or Deputy Director. We have ongoing equity discussions, and especially related to our racial equity framework. CORE is going to be a valuable partner in that preparation work. Tribal consultation and partnership with Metro Council or Metro's Tribal Affairs team. Just a reminder that 2023 was the first time that a tribe submitted a project for the plan, and getting to build upon that work. The feedback they gave us last time, they want to be engaged earlier. So it's exciting to be coming to them during the scoping phase, our first phase of this project. And of course, ongoing internal coordination with teams here from GAPT, DEI, ongoing work to support the communities that Cody represents, and Parks and Nature and other departments. So I think it's passing it back to Andre.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. So what's coming up next? Well, it's July, and we do have both our draft work and engagement plans out. And so seeking feedback on those, because at the end of the day in October, you and JPAC will be the body to approve this. And so I'm excited to get it in front of you. We also have sort of 2-page versions that are the overview that are a lot easier to engage with if people don't want to dig into the whole 30-page documents. But they're out, and so really excited to be meeting with you today. We do have another roadshow where we're taking this out to all of our partners, county coordinating committees, internal Metro committees, and so just seeking feedback so that we can incorporate that feedback and get a final polished version for your hopeful approval. And so with that, I think we'll move to the next slide where we have some discussion questions. These are just to get us started. If there's anything that is not covered in these questions, please feel free to ask. But first and foremost, do you feel good about the direction that we're heading? Does it feel in alignment with the initial conversations we had? Are there any key elements that you feel are missing or need to be explained better? And what do you hope is ensured to be reflected in our engagement plan? Are there people, organizations, other things that are critical that would support your adoption and approval of this document, or of these documents? And if there's anything else you want to ask, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Fabulous work as always. Council, do we have any comments, questions for the team today? Councilor Lewis.
Sure, thank you so much. I really want to lift up that you've been doing the work. I've seen you out there at 7:30 in the morning, and just making sure that you're talking to folks and getting this on the radar early. As you are kind of underscoring the importance of storytelling as the important tool that you're using in community, I think it really makes sense that you connect with the transportation people in each city. So while I respect that you've gone to the coordinating bodies, that kind of touches at the county level. I think it would be great in engagement to go to the transportation advisory boards at the city level, because they're the ones who knit together our policy and storytelling. That is definitely going to be less technical than what you're getting from staff. So I understand that's a heavy lift, but I think that's where the most powerful stories are going to come, because they're the repository of citizen comment, of kind of where their troubled parts of the systems are that aren't yet to a project development. So that would just be my recommendation, is to know that you've got a repository of stories already. You just have to go sift through them and collect them.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Great. Councilor Simpson?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. The AA, I thought I'd never need, Andre and Alfredo, honestly. Thank you all for your work. Honestly, this has been, I've been following your work like Councilor Lewis. I'm excited that y'all are taking the thought to reach out to communities that are not in the urban growth boundary. I know our folks out in Sandy also use our transportation system. They come out east, come from the east to come in west. But your plan really highlights a stronger focus on economics. And I want to understand, how will freight mobility, industrial access, and job access be incorporated into the project evaluation criteria?
That is a great question. We're currently in the process of developing that project evaluation framework. And we did just lose our freight planner. And so I think we're gonna, yeah, Tim Collins just retired after 38 years at Metro. So big gap to fill, but I definitely want to mark your comment and figure out like how we are evaluating projects through that lens.
Yeah, I mean, as I think about, the conversation we just had with our group in front of us and the future that we are planning in our future visioning, I would hope that as we are planning these next 5 years of RTP, like, again, just like SEDS, how do we build on the next, like what you're doing now, the previous iteration, how do you build on it and build on it and build on it? I really want us to get into that mode.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful advice. And I think what you're making me think about is also tapping into other MPOs that have done their RTPs and seeing, are there great examples of how this has been incorporated in the past or currently. And so I will encourage our team to start to do some research and bring a response back to you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Councilor Huang?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Yep, great work.
Thank you.
Capturing information where we need. I think we get the richest feedback when the folks that we're engaging with have some sort of like, I guess, capacity building or time to think and learn about transportation. So I think, one frame I'd like to see more is like when we're engaging with underserved community, like how are we building community knowledge and understanding? I think that's like a good like co-goal, is not just for this RTP, but like when we go and speak to communities that they're better engaged. Because I think, we want to move beyond traffic is just dang bad and my bus doesn't get me to where I want to go. Like that's, if we don't do that kind of like education, that's where a lot of times you might end up with the feedback. So like, how are you getting more in-depth input is really important. And I, recently spoke with a colleague that signed up and was in just a couple months ago, the PSU transportation class that, Councilor Simpson championed. And we've done that class now a couple years. And like those folks have some of that like base technical understanding, and it might be cool to do like a alumni reunion with folks of that class. Cause I think, when I speak with community members that went through the class, they're like, that class is awesome, but like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Like I can be an advocate in my own community, but like, I don't know, since we like sponsor that, bringing those folks back for a real opportunity to engage could be cool. So just, I'm all about like, how do you build expertise in the community? And we do that intentionally, but also maybe through this process. So.
No, absolutely. And I think I really appreciate that. And we're trying to figure out ways to, yeah, what are the new emerging methods to engage and inspire and educate community members? 'Cause I think we want anyone to be able to pick this RTP up and feel like it's representative of them and like that they have a voice and a say in it and it's their future. And so what do we do to continue to lower the bar of engagement?
I will say, right now we're scoping, we're looking at like our funding for engagement and identifying 2 to 3 opportunities where we go through a procurement process. And we're prioritizing how we can offer those opportunities to folks that are at the community level. I think for one, capacity building would be one piece. The knowledge stays with them. And they're also just in touch with that, with these communities at the frontline level.
Yeah, I think when you do it right, like you end up with new counselors that, you know, are engaged, right? But I also think the alumni network, yes, would be like, yeah, like you're in the class, but then you can apply your knowledge in the real world. So it'd be really cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. That was really, I like that idea a lot. A little reunion. Councilor Lucy, have your hand up again?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
I actually wanted to zero in very specifically on like page 13 and 14 with the consultation. I think it's really important to recognize that this is formal consultation. So inappropriate places, making sure we're using the big C. And also that means that it will be coming from council and communication, often routed through council president. And I think there's just a level of formality there that I just want to really recognize in this moment, because it's our role to make sure that it is government to government and fully respectful. It's not another engagement activity. It's government to government consultation. The other piece there is before we go knocking on their door saying we want to talk, we keep lifting up the CTGR project, and that's really an important milestone. But there were other pieces from the last RTP that were not project specific, but were more about values and feedback that we should see if we can make any progress on, or at least have some response on before we start doing this thing again. Otherwise, they will say, we did this last time, what has changed?
Yeah.
So I think we have some process work to do to make sure we're truly ready and that we can go in a good way and say, we heard you, we took some action.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Councilor Simpson?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. Round 2, real quick. You know, safety is always top of mind for us. I mean, we get to hear the report out at JPAC every month. And I think about the number of names, or well, not anymore, but at least the amount of folks that get called out to us in the eastern part of our region, the southern part, if I can speak to Clackamas. How will the RTP ensure that safety investments are prioritized in the places experiencing the greatest risk today? And what specific accountability measures will help us know whether we're actually reducing fatalities and serious injuries?
Great questions. So historically, we have used our high injury corridors to understand where, you know, things are taking place. But to make sure investment, we're actually having initial conversations about our equity focus areas as being the proper methodology for analyzing certain geographies. There is some emerging conversations about our social vulnerability index as well as a tool that could potentially be used. And so we're having some early conversations to better understand that what tool makes the most sense for getting the outcomes that we want. And the outcome I believe that Metro wants is 0 injuries and deaths on our network. I think that's our Vision Zero goal. And so I think it's a very easy metric to track. Are people dying on our streets? And so if we find that there are deaths and serious injuries in certain geographies happening at a higher rate, what are the transportation investments on the final project list helping us reduce those? Yeah.
Appreciate that. No, it's something that I think that, I mean, you know, this, hearing those names, seeing the impacts that it has on families, friends, neighbors, it's a tough one. And so like if our goal is to get to Vision Zero, then putting those metrics in and getting us there through this plan it's a plan. So implementation on the ground is going to be key to
Mhm.
making sure that we actually see that through and working with our partners. How do you see ensure that is going to happen through their various plans?
Oh, that's a very big question. I appreciate it. I think, well, one thing is we will definitely need support and leadership from council and JPAC to really say, you know, is reducing deaths to zero and serious injuries to zero, is that a goal of this RTP? And if so, are we going to have projects on the list that do not move us towards that objective? And I think that's a very high level conversation beyond sort of the planners here. But if you all conclude that that is the direction that, you know, you feel that this plan should be addressing, in addition to all the other goals you stated, then would love to move forward with your leadership. And then recognizing that, you know, we do not control the TSPs that individual jurisdictions are doing, but we can set sort of a regional vision. And so, yes, please.
Yeah, and Councilor Simpson, I want to also add that through the Safe Streets for All grant that Lake McTie has been leading, they've been developing a lot of tools that are going to be a valuable resource to our partners as we go into that call for projects. And so it has very tailored safety data for each community in the region. They've been making it very accessible and will continue to lift that work up and bring that forward as part of preparing for that call for projects, so that we are supporting them using that information and making sure it's available, but it's also influencing their work and thinking about the projects they're forwarding to the RTP, as well as their transportation system plan updates that for many communities or several communities are underway.
Thank you.
Excellent. Wonderful. Councilor Nolan.
Thanks, Mr. President. I want to follow up on that. Good conversation. We know that the way we lay out and design roadways has an impact on safety. But there are other factors that we have only an indirect influence over on safety. The choice of the vehicle fleet differences and the increasing market preference for vehicles that have a flat nose on the front instead of a curved one, a flat grill, if you will, that hits a person is more likely to be fatal than one that person could roll over, end up injured, but not as fatal. Do we have discussions about those kinds of factors? And I mean, where you put the concrete may not be so much a factor, but maybe how you design things, maybe incentives. Does that play at all in your planning process?
Definitely with our safety team, they've definitely looked into vehicle size, weight, speeds. We also have our Designing Livable Streets and Trails guide that does create a framework for sort of the types of investments we should be making on our streets to make them safer for people that are not driving. But I think you really call it a great point. There's limitations to what the RTP can tell folks to do. We can have guiding policies. I don't think we will get into we can talk about vehicle size, but we can't say, hey, we don't regulate vehicle size through the RTP, you know? And so I think it'll be really important to work with you all to get very clear on what we are able to convey through the regional transportation plan and what we do have power or control over, and then using your vision to guide sort of the outcomes of the RTP through that.
Thanks. To follow up on that, do we have within Metro mechanisms by which we can really understand the environment, the forces, the practices, either public or individual drivers, that contribute to crashes, that contribute to injuries, that contribute to deaths? And is that a tool that's used in this process?
Thank you, Councilor Nolan, for that question. That type of information is part of what the Safe Streets for All work has been, the safety program that has been going on. We have a safety strategy. There's been an annual report, and so that report has not been updated for a few years. We've been working on developing other data and tools to share, so we can work with the team to see what other information we can bring forward to elevate, but there are corridor specific planning efforts that can be done to look at those high energy corridors and what is the mix of causes of those crashes. And some, as Andre said, are not things that we will necessarily be able to address specifically in the RTP, but we can highlight what those are. But those are corridor specific analysis and safety action plans, which the Safe Streets for All grant also helped fund. And so there are several jurisdictions that have developed their own safety action plan that are looking at those are as causes and looking at other solutions that they can do at the community level. And
Great.
more communities
Sounds-
we want to be able to do that type of planning.
Good, thanks, Kim. And how old is this analysis? You
You
said a little out of date.
Well, the annual safety plan, at the end of 2025. So there is,
Okay,
it's more.
that's pretty
yeah,
recent then.
That's recent.
Good.
I'm thinking back to the regional safety plan or strategy and analysis done prior to the last RTP update.
And to follow that thought along, maybe not something that can be discussed as narrative in the RTP, but it may be something that we want to consider in our government affairs and particularly legislative agenda. Are there things we can collaborate with the state on that might influence those? And I have one more thread that I'd like to follow. I like the idea of putting in front of us, tough question about, okay, look at what we've got here. Do you really mean that that safety is such a top priority that projects that don't advance safety or improve safety maybe not drop off entirely, but get scored less favorably because this is more of an on-off switch instead of a range of values. Do we apply that? Or I would hope we would apply that as well to synchronizing the projects on the RTP with our climate smart policy. Projects, do we evaluate projects? I know we at one point we talked about evaluating projects individually, and there was a reason we only did it collectively. Am I remembering correctly? And if so, are we moving toward a point where we can make a judgment, maybe quantitative and precise, maybe more expert judgment about the contribution or just detraction of individual projects on our greenhouse gases goal and other climate goals?
Yeah, thank you for that question.
And have we told people about that?
Yeah, so we're
It's easier when we tell people, this is an important project when you're submitting yours. Remember, we're going to judge it against, if it doesn't help, if it makes greenhouse gases worse, not something we want to either consider or at least not prioritize.
So we're in some early phases of looking back at our previous project evaluation methodologies, but I will invite you to, you have final say in the sense that if that is a level of evaluation that you would recommend for our team to do, you have that authority to guide us in that direction.
And that was part of the first conversation, the TPAC workshop we had that Elliot Rose presented, the system analysis, how we did the project assessment. And so we will continue to work on developing a proposal about how we refine that as a follow-up to what JPAC and the Metro Council adopted as part of the last RTP, giving us direction to do further work on that. And we'll be bringing that forward as part of designing the call for projects. So that'll be a topic that it sounds like we should plan to bring back for discussion at council specifically as we go forward.
And from my perspective, Mr. Chair, and I put it out to the council, I think it would be appropriate for council to weigh in, maybe on a consensus, maybe on a different perspectives basis on how those two, and maybe there are other criteria that are qualifying or disqualifying, and then we go on to rating. I think that's a discussion we should have before a final RTP is presented to us.
I think I understand. We're looking to have a conversation about, you mean like goals and priorities, values around RTP and how we determine projects and how that then informs community engagement? Is that right? Or
It makes sense to me that council discuss and reach some kind of understanding of individual preferences and priorities and convey that to the RTP team before the RTP comes back for final approval.
Thanks. Have we not done that already with this in terms of looking at the high level goals, priorities? I could be wrong.
So to ask then,
Go ahead.
Councilor Simpson's question, is safety go, no go in the process?
I think we have a wide range of values and goals and priorities, and I think the plan probably tries to balance them the best way possible. So anyway, but Ted, I see you're going to answer.
Yeah, so I think there is both system and project level evaluation. For example, on safety, we do have criteria for what constitutes a safety project. It's a project that is located in a safety identified area that has a safety issue, and it has to have project elements that are proven countermeasures to the safety issue at hand. And so we do an evaluation, say, of the 1,000 projects in the project list. 280 of them, for example, are designated safety projects that are specifically designed around addressing a known safety issue with known countermeasures. And that represents X amount of the total evaluation. So on that particular safety issue, our safety data, we will have that level of an evaluation. We don't have I heard you say qualifier, no go project, like we don't do that with the project list. We evaluate the projects that come in. We say, here's the results of that evaluation, but we don't have like a veto authority on a project. We can explain which projects meet that safety evaluation in particular. I think at you also now mentioned GHG emission projects.
Safety is one of our policies, so is climate smart policy.
Right. So there is a mix of system level versus project level evaluations across all 5 goals, right? And I would say some of them get to a project level, like the safety one I explained. But none of our criteria are presented as information for what we have. None of our criteria have a go, no go policy attached to them. So there's every project has to be a known safety project, because projects are developed around trying to meet different elements of the 5 goals we have, and plus whatever local goals are brought to bear when they're doing their system plan updates.
Okay, I misunderstood the conversation here. I thought that you had said that was a good question and something we should bring back to council.
Well, in terms of how we do what the goals are, and you can have input obviously on how do we measure those against those goals, the projects and the system analysis we do against those goals. Obviously within our capabilities of doing that, our technical capabilities of doing that, and how we present that information to you. But what I'm saying is we've never in the past had a qualifying or disqualifying measurement that some project has to meet to be included in the plan. We do present the technical analysis to you. This is best with the information we have and the analysis we do. And you can use that information how you see fit as policymakers, but there is no standard. We have adopted no standard that, every project has to contribute to greenhouse gas emission reductions, for example, or every project has to be a designated safety project. So that would be a change in our process if that's something the council or NJPAC want to entertain.
Thanks.
Is that
Thanks for the
trying to-
explanation.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. Councilor Simpson?
I just wanted, you asked about leading edge heights.
Yes.
That is, so we did an update a couple years ago, 2023, the manual on uniform traffic control devices, MUTCD. It's a national, and that's where you can make those changes to how we install crosswalks, what's the edge height for a vehicle and those things. Just want to make sure you had that information. It's with the.
We'll do this together.
Yes. Make sure you got that.
Thanks.
Of course.
Excellent. Thank you. Seeing no other hands, I appreciate the presentation. I specifically value seeing one of the bullet points that I've tried to bring up every time that we have the privilege of having you present to us the trade-offs in policy elements. And I like what Councilor Huang said around using this as an opportunity to just educate people and bring people along, especially if we're taking the time to invest in someone's education and capacity to engage in transportation, then they can engage for many, many more years in the future. I think about some of the really big policy questions that are in front of us. We have major priorities around electrification, and we have an administration in the White House that has eviscerated electrification programs. We have priorities around transit, and our transit districts are facing major cliffs. So I would love to use these as an opportunity to be like, okay, these are the scenarios. How do we step up locally? How do we as Oregonians fill in the gap if we need to? Is that something that we value? And the question around tolling congestion pricing continues to be one that I'm looking forward to hearing what the community thinks and how we want to approach the changing kind of economics and kind of public perception of priorities around that. So just really looking forward to that and hope that you have meaningful, rich conversations with folks in the region. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to move on to our last update, which is a discussion on the Regional Trails Program. Staff is with us today to talk about a few things, which include proposed changes to the screening criteria that helps us identify trails of regional significance, and changes to how bond funds are distributed to make sure that we are delivering projects on time. We do have Parks and Nature Director John Blasher with us, along with Robert Spurlock, Principal Regional Planner. Welcome, and floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, President Gonzalez, councilors, John Blasher, he and his Parks and Nature Director, joined by Robert Spurlock, our Principal Planner, who are focused on regional trails. We can go to the next slide, please. So as President Gonzalez mentioned, we're here to give a status update on Metro's Regional Trails Program with specific attention on 3 topics. We'll provide a quick refresher on Metro's regional role in regional trails. We'll have an overview of the Regional Trails System Plan Map Update process, which we do every 5 years in advance of the Regional Transportation Plan that you just heard of. And then we'll also share some progress on delivering the Trails Program through the 2019 Parks and Nature Bond measure. Next slide, please. So as you may recall, Metro's role in regional trails is distinct from our role as a regional park provider and as a steward for natural areas for wildlife conservation. It's helpful to think of our regional trails program along the same lines as the work of Metro's planning department. And regional trails, as we work through them, they happen through a close partnership with the local agencies where Metro helps to play that role of convener, facilitator, and helping to lead efforts like the Regional Trail System Plan Map Update. So as with our region's road networks and state and local agencies build, own, and operate those regional trails within their jurisdictions using a combination of federal, state, local, and regional funding sources. The bond, the 2019 bond, is Parks and Nature's primary tool to help implement the Regional Trail System Plan map. And by supporting local agencies with capital resources through our grant programs and through our bonds land acquisition program. I also like to think of the regional trails sort of as akin to linear parks or wildlife corridors that they're able to provide as well. With that, I'm going to pass it to Robert to talk about a little bit more about the map update. You can go to the next slide.
Thank you, counselors. My name is Robert Spurlock. Pronouns are he, him, and I'm as John said, principal regional trails planner. So also, as John mentioned, we do this regional trail system plan update every 5 years in advance of the regional transportation plan. It's an effort that's specifically called out in the regional framework plan. It directs Metro to coordinate with the RTP process and with local and state governments to identify a regional trail system. So we'll share a timeline of where we're at in a second, but we hit a big milestone last month where we completed our coordination meetings with 32 different agencies. We held 19 meetings throughout the spring, and it resulted in over 100 edits to the map. On this slide, we're seeing the current but previous version of the map that was adopted in 2023. So we'll see some edits happening to that map. For example, 35 miles of new regional trails have been built since 2023 when the last map was updated. Next slide, please. So this is that timeline. So we've collected all of these edits from our local agency partners, and so now staff kind of behind the scenes, we're doing the mapping work to incorporate all those edits. So we'll be releasing a draft map of the new map next month for stakeholders to review. And then we're anticipating coming back to Metro Council in January to adopt the new map. Next slide, please. I just thought you'd appreciate hearing some of the feedback that we got from these 35 different agencies that we met with in May and June. So I just pulled out a few quotes from a survey that they all completed. So we asked them of the various regional trail related services that Metro offers, what ones do they find important? And here's a couple of responses. They said trails provide the coordination, the Metro services provide the coordination, advocacy, and funding resources necessary to make trail plans a reality. Regional planning is important because we need to make sure the trail network is connected across jurisdictions. And then assistance is needed at every point along the way in my one-person department. I thought that was an important quote because we have to remember a lot of these agencies we work with are very small and understaffed. Next slide, please. Another question we asked, how can Metro's regional trails program best serve you? This was more of an open-ended question. Just tell us what's working, how we can help, basically. And so we heard funding is always important, and we appreciate Metro's grant programs. Continue advocating for and funding trail acquisition, planning, development, and ongoing maintenance, and then funding for capital and acquisition, regional connectivity, and key connections. Next slide. So a key part of this whole process of updating this map is the local agencies have the ability to nominate new trails to be included in the network. So what staff do, Metro staff, we run these new proposed trails through this screening process to ensure that the trail that they're proposing is regionally significant and not just a local trail, but actually belongs on the regional map. So Metro Council adopted some screening criteria in 2001. And we use that, we've been using those same criteria for the past 5 map updates since that time. We've only had a couple of minor modifications to the criteria since then. So the criteria have been working well. I'll explain the criteria briefly. So there are 2 steps for this screening criteria. The first step is that the trail must be primarily separated from roads and streets. And then next slide, please. And so if it meets that criterion, then we go to the second step where it needs to meet at least 4 of 6 criteria. So we had briefings with counselors in March and June, and counselors suggested modifying the criteria in a couple of ways to, one, to include connections to other trails of statewide significance in addition to just the Willamette Greenway, which has already been listed in this criteria. And then second was to make equity and targeted universalism more explicit and not optional. So for that first suggestion, we've suggested adding the highlighted sentence here, or the highlighted part of that first criterion. So located along Willamette Greenway and or other state designated trails connecting to destinations beyond the metro region. So let's go to the next slide. So then for the second suggestion, we're proposing to add this second section to the first step. So rather than making equity one of the optional criteria in that second step, we'd recommend integrating it through into this first step so that trails, kind of recognizing that regional trails are already identified in locally adopted plans and that those plans are developed through community engagement. And then we're still continuing to prioritize and fund projects that advance targeted universalism and improve access for underserved communities. So the language would be, the trail is included in a locally adopted transportation, parks, or trails plan developed through public engagement that includes underserved and historically marginalized communities. And essentially this has already been the expectation anyway, because this is how the regional transportation works. Projects are supposed to be in local TSPs first and then in the RTP. So in practice, this is how we've really always done the regional trail system plan. So it really makes sense to just codify this. So the advantage is that, again, equity becomes a requirement rather than just an optional criterion. And then it recognizes the work already done through local transportation system plans, and state planning requirements require community engagement already. And so again, this reflects targeted universalism as an approach and ensures that our entire system is planned with inclusive engagement. Next
Can
slide.
I ask a question on this slide real quick?
Mhm.
I stepped away for like a few minutes, so you might have covered this, but what was the criteria before, like text for step 2? What was the language there? Or
Yeah.
was it only step 1? Or I mean, for step
Yeah.
subsection 1?
It's having 2 steps makes it kind of confusing. So
Yeah.
we just had one criterion for the first step, and it was
Okay,
what's
so now you're
listed
making
here as number 1. And so now we're just adding a second one to the first step. And
Okay.
then the second step would still just have the 6 criteria that we showed on the previous slide, but we would expand one of those 6.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Great. Next slide. So I thought it'd be helpful to show this slide. This is from a few years ago. Counselors, we gave council a presentation when we approved the refinement plan for the 2019 bond measure. It included we identified about 60 different opportunity areas where we could invest funds from the bond measure, and that was all developed through robust community engagement and driven primarily by equity. So this was really an equity tool for prioritizing regional trails. So this is a way in which we take the adopted plan, the map that we're talking about right now, and then when we get to implementing it and funding through our bond measure or other funding sources, various projects within that map, we can use equity to prioritize where that investment goes. Next slide. So I'm going to hand it back to John to take us into the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Robert. And yeah, just to clarify, when we're saying equity, it's using the equity focus areas that we're already using in the planning department consistency. So we want to share a little bit, shifting topics to more on the trails component of the 2019 bonds. And as a reminder, this program provides $40 million to implement the activities that help to support the regional trails system plan map. Gotta find it. I might have to start using that acronym so I can say that faster. But so the bond program at $40 million. This slide here shows a brand new segment of the 40-mile loop along the Sandy River in Troutdale, which just had its grand opening just last month. So at the Sharon Nesbitt Heritage Park. So we go to the next slide. As part of that 40 million, 20 million was identified for competitive grants to go out. The remaining 20 was to continue to invest in acquisitions of trail easements, support construction of regional trail projects, and the ability to support the staffing and administrative process that it takes to do that. This slide up here is a reminder of the 20 million in grants that went out to these 12 projects. They were awarded in 2022, and they're embedded as part of the RUFA solicitation process. So we were able to run both those at the same time. And council made the decisions on these 12 projects. You can see that span across the region, and most of these are for construction. A few were for a little bit of planning and design phases, but a lot of great progress that has been made across all of these. I'm actually going to pass it back to Robert and go to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit more about the status of these grants and some proposal on the remaining 20 million for the program.
So this very simple table here is just showing the progress that we're making on those 12 grant programs, or sorry, grant projects. So in the first column, we're just looking at what our progress was a year ago, and then fast forward to the next column, this is where our progress is at today. So we hadn't completed any projects yet a year ago. We've now completed 3 projects, including that one that we just showed the picture of the ribbon cutting for. And then there were 7 projects underway a year ago, but 3 of those are complete, like I just said, but 8 are now underway. So that's a total of 11 projects that are either complete or underway. There is one still that where we don't have signed IGA yet, but that has recently started moving more quickly than it was for the first several years because of some kind of interagency politics between some other local agencies that we've had to sort through. And then our spending has been, if you think of it as like a curve, we're really on the upswing for our spending now for reimbursements for this grant program. So that's been really positive. Next slide, please. Okay, so we do have this proposal for shifting some of our funds from this $40 million that had been set aside for land acquisition. This is land acquisition for gaps in the regional trail network. We want to be able to ensure that all of this funding can be spent down by 2031. So we've got 2 columns on this table. One is showing what the initial distribution was across these different activities. And then on the right, we're showing what we're proposing. So in the green there, acquisitions would go from 10 million down to $3 million, reflecting just acknowledging the challenges that we've been facing in trying to acquire land. And I can go into what some of those challenges are, but I think I will really quickly. So just the local agencies that we work with are expected to take on the easement or the fee title to the land that we're purchasing. And it's been more difficult for them to do that lately with other pressing needs. And then NIMBYism has always been a challenge, but even more so in the last few years. And then there have been other reasons too. It is just more challenging to purchase trail easements when it's not a high dollar value and it takes a lot of time. So because of that, we're proposing that we shift some of that funding to some of these other areas. So for example, we're showing the Marine Drive Trail. That's a construction project in Gresham that Metro is leading. And as we recently in the last few months, we've hit a design milestone, and then bids went out and the costs increased at each of those milestones. So we're able to backfill that. And then the Willamette Cove project in North Portland, it includes a high priority segment of the North Portland Greenway. So we're able to cover some of that funding through this, $1 million. And then there's this new set of projects that we're calling the Natural Area Regional Trail Alignment Studies. So these are metro-owned natural areas where there's a proposed regional trail on the map that should someday go through that site. We'll be able to use some of this funding to identify exactly where on the site those trails would go. And then one thing that I want to talk to you more about on the next few slides is this new $1 million pot of funding for, we're calling it Trail Grants Round 2. So this would be for local agencies to do construction projects for regional trails. Let's go to the next slide, please.
But before you move on.
Yeah.
Councilor Lewis has a question.
Just really quick, 0.6 for Columbia Boulevard Bridge. I don't know much about building bridges, but that seems like a really low number. What are we doing there?
Yeah, that is confusing because this doesn't capture the entire budget for the Columbia Boulevard Bridge. This is only the portion that's coming from this funding source, but
Or value add for the trail. Great, cool.
yeah,
Thank you.
I think the total funding's in the
Significantly more.
Several million,
Yeah,
tens of millions.
over $10 million.
Yeah,
Great.
Lewis, that's the city of Portland's project.
Okay.
That we've been able to contribute some bond funds.
That's great. I just wanted to make sure we weren't building 3 inches of a bridge.
I wish we could get a bridge over Columbia Boulevard for $600,000.
And clean up Willamette Cove for $1 million.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. I didn't want to derail us. I just didn't believe the number.
Probably.
For 0.6, you can close your eyes and see the bridge, you know? Councilor Wong, you want
yes,
to
just a
It's
quick-
an important slide because it's the money slide, you know?
Yeah, a quick clarifying question. You said on the acquisitions, we've been seeing rising NIMBYism. Does that mean people don't want to see trails in their neighborhood?
Amenities.
That's right, yeah.
Who doesn't want to?
It's more landowners, people who live near a trail. So this has been a trend for as long as I can remember, where if you live immediately adjacent to a trail, you're going to be more ambivalent and perhaps be a little bit more reticent about the idea of it. If you live just one house away or a block away or half mile away, it's a huge amenity, and all of the research shows that people actually pay more for a home that's near a trail. But yeah,
It's like
if we're
immediate
asking
given.
a landowner to sell us an easement across their property, that's always been something people are concerned about, but those concerns have risen in recent years.
And I've heard it's been like fear of crime or homelessness or drug use or things, I mean, things like that are the primary things that I've heard.
100%.
Okay.
That's it exactly. That's pretty much that's the list right there. And those are the concerns people were raising 20 years ago. And they're the same concerns people raise today. It's just that it's a more heightened concern, and they're less, it's more difficult for us to persuade them now than it was before.
Councilor Sim.
No, I want to pull on that thread because it feels like that's the same bucket that they say about transit or about building a new multifamily housing facility. It seems as though like people who don't have property or a home is a problem. I just want to put that on the record.
Amen.
That's right.
You know, a willing seller program is an important methodology we apply, right, as its limitations, but yeah, okay, anyway, sorry, I know you have more to cover.
Yeah,
Talk through some
great
of the
questions.
grants, but we can always come back to this slide too. if
Oh,
people have
do you
questions.
want to share more, Councilor Nolan?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
Great, thank you. So here's a map of, I mentioned the Natural Area Regional Trail Alignment Studies. So these are some of these are the metro natural areas where we would be spending that $1 million on identifying exactly where the trail could one day go through those sites. And just to be clear, that $1 million wouldn't be building any trails. We would be doing the preliminary design work to then be ready to eventually build trails. Next slide, please. Okay, so more about the Trail Grants Round 2. So since this is only $1 million to award, it's really not much money. So we're making it very low barrier for the recipients of this funding. So no application materials, for example. Basically, we're looking for projects that are most closely aligned with existing council adopted policies from the bond resolution and from the refinement plan that council adopted. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in need to implement local shovel-ready projects for regional trails, and only $1 million to award. So we have some pretty tight criteria that we're really trying to find just a very small list of the best projects, and I think we've done that. So these are projects that have to be built by 2031, and each of these can. I'll show them to you in a second. And they have to be consistent with the prior engagement and prioritization work that we've done reflecting equity. And so here are the five, or sorry, one more slide where I'm gonna say a little bit more about our process for finding these projects, for how they're consistent with our criteria. So next slide, please. So this is the map from the bond resolution that referred the bond to voters. And so it shows all the projects that are eligible for these funds. So this is a big list. This is kind of that $100 million or more than $100 million in need list. But we narrowed this down further by looking at the results of the equity-driven prioritization tool that I mentioned. That was part of the council approved refinement plan. And then looking at projects that council has supported in the recent past through the regional flexible funds allocation and through other parks and nature grant awards. And then also we had the regional trail major investment strategy about a year and a half ago. That's a list of 20 shovel ready regional trail projects that Metro Council had asked staff to produce. So next slide, please. So this shows these 5 candidate projects. This is in no particular order, but again, since it's only $1 million that's available, it's unlikely that we would fund all of these projects, but these are all projects that already have a significant amount of money. None of them, what I'm trying to say is all of them are at least partially funded. None of them need their entire funding. So it is possible that a small amount of money could be spread around evenly to all of them. So let's take a closer look at each of them. Next slide, please.
So just want to flag, we have about 12 minutes left.
Okay,
that
so we'll go through these really quick. Okay, so this is a project that would continue the investments from the 2022 bond grants that we mentioned, and also the community choice grant work. Next slide, please. That one was in Forest Grove. This is in Cornelius. So Washington County will be building the 6 mile long Council Creek Trail, but they won't be including wayfinding signs as part of that project. And so we have an opportunity to fund the wayfinding signs to be consistent with wayfinding signage across the rest of our system. Next slide, please. This would be a new bike ped bridge crossing the Sunset Highway near Beaverton. This is one where Metro has already provided funding in through three different programs to get it through planning and design and now into construction. Next slide, please. This project, bike ped bridge crossing the Clackamas River, has been awarded successive rounds of regional flexible funds. They could really use some help with coming up with their local match. So this could be helpful for that. Next slide, please. And then lastly, there's the Tumwater Village Riverwalk. They have some funding to complete block 2, and they're looking for additional funding. And so we have one final slide, which is just our list of discussion questions, and I'll see if you wanted to close it up with anything.
No, thanks, Robert. That's great. Yeah, so question for council we have here: if you do the revised criteria on the regional trails, the criteria for the regional trail system plan, does that address some of the previous council feedback? Do you have any thoughts on the 5 candidate projects that we're looking to fund? And then any concerns or desires related to process, timeline, anything else? With that,
Thanks.
Thank you.
If we could leave the questions on the screen too. All right, council, any comments or questions? I know there's a lot, also fantastic projects, all of them. It's like choosing between your kids, I'm assuming. Councilor Vaughn?
Thank you, President Gonzalez. And yeah, I just want to appreciate that you added the equity criteria in the first step. And I think that's a good kind of agency practice as we update kind of frameworks from decades past that, we're elevating that as a criteria. So I appreciate that. I think it was an elegant solution. And yeah, all the projects seem great. So good work.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you for suggesting that changed the criteria.
Right, Councilor Lewis?
Sure, thank you. I guess in terms of the criteria, for me, it makes sense so long as we use the lens of what the jurisdiction is. We have some very small jurisdictions that their engagement process is going to look very different and not have some of the formalities that we would expect of our larger jurisdictions and in order to include every voice. And these are jurisdictions that are doing excellent trail work. So just want to caution, if you have a city that's under, say, 10,000, they're going to do things differently. And then in terms of the 5 candidate projects, I like them all, but I have a favorite. And I would just really want to lift up that Metro has a lot on the line in making sure the Riverwalk can be built. So we need to make sure that it is the best trail it can be. There's obviously state promises. There were other local promises, but Metro took some responsibility for being out there in the community for the Riverwalk. And I would like to see that one of the 5 definitely included.
Thank you.
Yeah, just quick comments for me. I think the criteria look right. I do want to ask a question, Robert. During your presentation, you mentioned that you were implementing targeted universalism, which has the department done? I know the council adopted, this is a refresh, but I don't think we've done targeting. I just want to ask because I think it's important as we embark on a really big thing that we use it right. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor President Gonzalez. Yeah, I believe you all as a council are going to be adopting that, or have the adoption in front of you of possibly of like targeted universalism and overall approach later this month. And so
okay, so you've been working.
We're just trying to anticipate, and as some of us have gone through this, so I think we are pointing in that direction, but I wouldn't say that it's been fully implemented. And some of this is a learning process for all of us of what.
Yeah. Okay, cool, great. So I mean, I know that we've been talking about it as an agency, and we're updating our like strategic plan. And so I was curious about the work going within Parks and Nature. So that's great. I think I mean, if we're talking about projects, like one of the coolest things that I got to work on over the last few years, the Council Creek project from Hillsborough to Forest Grove. I don't know how you pick from these projects, though. They're all remarkable and meaningful. So I guess one of the questions I have is what's your decision framework for how you will select that, and how does council input influence the staff decision or recommendation back to council?
Well, what we've heard in conversations with leadership is that it's really important that we be able to have some ribbon cuttings and that we be able to get this money spent on time. And so
sounds good to me.
So my understanding of that direction is that we're looking for the projects that can give us the most assurance that they can deliver.
Okay.
They all carry some risk. Every project carries some risk.
That's true.
And so we're really just trying to suss out which ones have the least amount of risk, because we're confident, we want you to be confident that any and all of these projects are winners and reflective of our values and our adopted goals and objectives. And so we just don't want to have to come back to you in a couple years and say, oh, that project that we thought we were gonna fund fell through.
Yeah.
So I think that's the driving decision-making factor is which ones,
All right, excellent.
yeah, have the most.
Thanks. All right, thanks for coming back to us. Really good work. And we're gonna pass it off to CO Communication. I know we have like 5 minutes left, and I think Director McGuire would like those 5 minutes, but Andrew. up to
That you, yes, Dr. McGuire is here to talk about the June 25th RWAC meeting.
And thank you for your patience as well. Took it to the very end.
We have a fully packed agenda. I appreciate the time. Good afternoon, President Gonzalez and councilors. Again, my name is Marta McGuire, Director of Waste Prevention and Environmental Services, and I'm happy to share an update on the last Regional Waste Plan Advisory Committee meeting that we had in June. We had a full agenda. There were 3 main items that we focused the time on. The first was a debrief from the recently completed budget process. The second was reviewing the Regional Waste Plan Progress Report. And the third was getting early input from the committee on the system financing and fee strategy project that we are beginning work on. Under the first item, the committee members discussed what worked well throughout the budget and fee development process and where we could make some improvements. Members agreed that holding 2 meetings during the budget engagement period was really helpful. So this year, instead of just 1, we had 2 meetings in April. So big acknowledgement and appreciation to the advisory committee members for spending that time. And they also appreciated council's efforts in adopting fees earlier in the budget cycle. At the same time, members acknowledged the challenges posed by the limited timeline available for the budget review. Based on that feedback, we are seeking ways to share high-level budget priorities in the fall and engaging the committee and considering how to carry the budget conversation through all the advisory items that we go through with the committee. We also had the opportunity to review the recently released progress report for the Regional Waste Plan, which tracks implementation on the goals and action. We got a lot of positive feedback on that plan, and the members appreciated the opportunity to review the progress. We will be presenting that report to council this fall in September. And finally, the committee provided early input on the system financing and fee strategy project. This project is responding to feedback that we heard throughout the budget and fee development process around the current funding model, declining waste tonnage, increasing infrastructure needs, and changes associated with the Recycling Modernization Act. They had the opportunity to weigh on opportunities and challenges that this project could address. Members emphasized the importance of developing a stable, predictable, and sustainable future funding structure that supports an accessible, equitable, and resilient regional waste system. The committee will continue to help shape this work and will be engaging council this fall on that project. The discussion gave us that opportunity to get some early direction on the project, and we're looking forward to that continued conversation. We have a meeting coming up this July. We will be looking at the Metro West concepts as a part of the implementation of the system facilities plan. And I'm happy to turn it over to Councilor Nolan and Councilor Lewis if I miss anything. And that is the update that I have.
Thanks. Councilor Nolan, Chair Nolan, anything?
Marta wouldn't say this for herself, but I would like to compliment her and her team for navigating some important and a little bit contentious or diverse, a variety of perspectives in ways that brought the committee in and also clarified the direction and realities that WFPES is dealing with. It took a lot of composure.
Thank you.
And a lot of staff work, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Chair Nolan. Yeah, maybe in a follow-up conversation, we'd love to learn more about the kind of the changing and the budgeting with fall. I mean, I think since I've been on the council, that's been a topic that has been brought up almost every single time. And so want to see what kind of the impacts will be and opportunities to bring folks in, external partners. Again, I just want to appreciate the work and thank you, Chair Nolan, for those comments and for everyone's leadership. All right. Anything from you, Andrew? Councilor Communication? Anyone would like to share anything critical? Councilor Lewis?
Yeah, I think it's critical to share that yesterday was the third and final meeting of the JPAC Transit Work Group, where we had JPAC members, 3 mayors, as well as the general manager of TriMet and 1 county commissioner, having some real conversation about transit level of service. And there will be a full report coming back to JPAC.
Very good. That is a big deal.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, and last, one thing for me, I think I've mentioned in past council meetings, but for the last few months, I've been working with Rukaya Adams on with a small group of folks that were assembled with by 1803 on shared prosperity. And I think it's actually 1 p.m. was when the letter was transmitted to the governor and to the Oregon legislature. I was a signer on that, as was Councilor Huang. So I'll make sure to forward that to everyone. But just wanted to give a heads up that that is now out in the ether. All right, seeing no further business, I will move to adjourn our meeting. Our next regular meeting is scheduled for July 9th at 10 a.m. That meeting will be held for the purpose of a public hearing and conducting interviews for the District 4 Councilor appointment. Heads up that meeting is going to be held at the Beaverton City Hall. So we will see you out on the west side. All right, adjourn.